Hi, my name is Lynn Thompson. I'm the president of Cold Steel Incorporated and the chief instructor of our training division. In this video presentation on how to fight with the saber and cutlass, we're going to give you all the basics on how to defend yourself with this terrific weapon. The saber and cutlass have really been neglected over the last 100 years as a weapon. They're far more efficient and far more effective than anybody gives them credit for. We're going to teach you now how to use this wonderful weapon to defend yourself, your family, and your loved ones if you're under violent, vicious attack. We're going to cut to the chase. We're not going to go through 25 or 30 years of training with the saber in this DVD presentation. We're going to give you the basics. We're going to give you the tools that you need to learn to disable, maim, or kill a deadly adversary confronting you and your family with deadly force. So, without further ado, let's get in the gym and start training. Before you start training, I want you to take a moment and think about the safety of yourself, your training partner, bystanders, and other objects in the area or in the room. The sword is a long weapon. It has tremendous reach. You can reach 6 feet to the side just by extending your arm. You can cut a 12-foot circle all the way around your body. If I go from my right side to my left side, it's quite often 12 feet or even longer if you're an exceptionally long-armed person. So the sword displaces a lot of area. It can cover a lot of ground. So you have to be always cognizant of the fact that somebody else might come inadvertently within the reach of your sword. Now, this becomes particularly important when you're in public examining swords. You might be at a trade show, a gun show, a sword show. Recently we exhibited at the Blade Show in Atlanta, and we had all of our swords on display there. And there was only a few times I had to intervene for the safety of other exhibitors and attendees when someone was doing something unsafe with a sword. But when you're in public, remember that other people aren't necessarily paying attention to what you're doing. And you can be so caught up in examining the sword that you lose track of where they're at and how close they are. And it's very easy to transfer a sword to this hand and look at something else, and somebody else walk into that blade. That point travels. Every time you move, that point moves all the way around. Now, other people aren't watching out for you. A lot of people don't go to sword shows very often, don't know that much about swords or edged weapons. They don't realize the danger. You always have to be cognizant of where your point is and where your edge is. You damage people with the point, the edge, or by percussion, running into them, smacking them with the butt of the sword or pommel, or hitting them with inadvertently with the hilt. So you've got to always be cognizant of where your sword is in relationship to the people around you. All right? The next thing I want to talk about is safety and training with your partner. Your training partner is the biggest asset that you have in learning how to fight with a sword or a cutlass. He's everything. A good training partner will make you grow by leaps and bounds. So treat them with the utmost respect. Remember, even when you're using an aluminum blade like this, that you can break his fingers, break his wrist, break his arm in a heartbeat. It just takes a little extra force to break a finger. It just takes a little extra force to break a wrist. You can cave in the side of somebody's head, even with an aluminum training blade. So keep that in mind. Use appropriate force. Use great respect and care and consideration when you're training with your partner. Now I'm going to call Anthony in here now, and we're going to go over some of the basic safety gear that you always want to have on when you're training with their saber and cutlass. The first and most important is the 3 weapons rated fencing mask. This is the strongest wire arrangement available in a fencing mask, and it'll give you the most protection against the point and edge on your face and head. Now I want to point out one deficiency to this is there is no protection in the back. So if Anthony puts this on and I turn to wrap him, and I'm going to teach this stroke later, I can apply my blade to the back of his head here where there's absolutely no protection. So if you're going to learn and practice this wrap stroke, you want to install extra padding to the back of the head coming down the neck. And if you don't know how to do this, look for a Filipino stick fighting helmet, and they offer a really good padding system that you can adapt and modify your fencing helmet so it looks the same and gives the same type of protection. So that's one deficiency in this helmet. Outside of this, though, it gives tremendous protection. I've been wearing fencing helmets 3 times a week since 1983. I've yet to have any injury while I'm wearing a fencing helmet. You will stay pretty much injury-free, even training with an aluminum blade, provided you don't use excessive, unnecessary, unreasonable force. Yeah, if I wind up and give this big telegraph cut, yeah, maybe I could crush through that, okay? But that's out of bounds. That's absolutely verboten. You should never be using that much force training with your partner. Outside of that, though, this gives tremendously good protection. You have a bib here that protects the throat to some degree. It's really designed more to give protection for a sport fencing saber, not necessarily a heavy trainer like this. While this training saber is dangerous, it's not near as dangerous and heavy as the real thing, but it still can cause tremendous trauma to the throat. So whenever you're targeting the throat area, you need to be extra careful. Go quarter speed, at the most half speed, so that you're absolutely convinced you have control over that point and you can control how much force you're applying. But with that said, this is tremendously good protection. Now, Anthony has on a leather fencing jacket. This is more of an instructor's jacket. It's heavy leather. Underneath that, he has an additional padded vest. Now, these are really good ideas to have when you're training with aluminum blades, which we suggest you do at all times. We're teaching you how to disable, maim, and kill with the sword. Not how to get a touch, not how to get a point. We want you to learn to use the right technique and sufficient force so that even your light cuts, even done with the very tip of the blade, are still destructive. They still do damage. We're not here to make touches or points. We're here to teach you how to really hurt somebody with a sword. So you have to keep that in mind. This will give good protection. Now, he has extra protection on. He has an additional sleeve on his sword arm. All right? This is another really good idea. He has a fencing glove on. All right? That gives some protection to his hand, and it helps and enhances his grip and his control over his weapon. So what I want you to think about investing in is an undervest, a heavy fencing jacket, and a heavy leather sleeve, a 3-weapons rated mask, and think about adding additional protection. If you don't use this wrap stroke, it's probably not necessary to modify your mask. If you do want to develop that wrap stroke, and I suggest you do develop it, because it's a really good asset and it presents the blade in a way that a lot of people aren't used to it, you want to modify your fencing mask appropriately. We normally don't attack the legs in training, but it's always a viable option in combat. The reason why is when I lower my blade to attack the legs, I quite often give away my face or upper body to any experienced fighter. So it's an iffy move, but a lot of times you're not fighting experienced fencers, and we'll cover this more. The attacks to the legs are very viable, but we normally don't pad those. However, I wouldn't discourage you from doing that. Putting on a good set of hard cap knee protection, we've got that hard bubble cap over your knee, is a good idea, and even elbow caps, hard elbow caps or elbow pads are a good idea also, particularly if you're training really hard or you're training with somebody you don't know quite as well. That's a really good idea. These things hit hard. An aluminum blade, I can shatter his elbow or shatter his kneecap at will if I wanted to. With the steel blade, it's absolutely frightening what a saber will do. So that might be a good investment also. It's not absolutely necessary if you're training with a modicum of control. Now, one last thing you might think about is adding a band brace for the forearm on your live or non-sword hand, because this is a target you might want to pick off, and you don't want to hit this with your trainer with very much force because you don't want to break his forearm. But you might add a band brace here, and you can get these from Filipino martial arts supply stores, and they offer a really good level of protection for this forearm. One of the things that I admired most about the saber and cutlass is that they are wonderfully efficient and marvelously simple in their construction. These weapons are very, very simple and terrifically effective in use. All they compose of is a couple parts: the blade, the handle, and the guard. Some people call this the hilt or the handle, and this is the guard. 3 pieces, that's it. But you can do a tremendous amount of damage with this weapon once you understand how to employ all 3 parts to greatest advantage, which is what I'm going to go into now. I want to make you intimately familiar with all the properties of your saber and cutlass. The first is the blade. Let's start here at the strongest part of the blade. This is called the fort, and it runs about halfway up the blade. It's the thickest part of the blade. I want the camera to come in there and take a look at that. Can we have a close-up of that? It's almost 3/8 of an inch thick here where it starts at the hilt, and it has what we call a distal taper. So it goes from thick at the hilt all the way to thin at the point. That's called a distal taper. So what we're going to use is the thickest part of the blade, the fort, to block and parry with. And what I want you to do on your saber and cutlass is keep this portion of the blade dull, quite dull. I want you to make sure that that's ground about a 1/16 of an inch thick there. It should be about a 1/16 of an inch thick right here at the fort. And I want that to be flattened because that's the portion of the edge that you're going to use to parry and block with and absorb blows from heavier weapons. And we don't want that to chip or break there. Now, it's pretty hard to break a sword, especially a cold steel sword. These are made to fight with, not hang on a wall. To injure you, when you put up your wall of steel, your opponent actually has to cut through 1 inch to 1.25 inches of steel. He has to go through it this way. You're not putting up the flat, you're putting up the edge. So he has to penetrate all of that steel. That's a tall task for any weapon, to break or to cut through all of that steel. So this is a very, very sturdy part of the blade. It's also another reason I want you to keep this dull is because sometimes you're going to shorten your sword and you're going to grab it with your empty hand. So you want to have a safe place to grab it. Now, one of the ways that you can learn to teach yourself where the fort is and where the foible or weaker part and sharper part of the blade is to put some tape or paint right here in the transition point. I know on this side of the red tape, it's dull. On this side of the red tape, it's sharp. Start out, when you're first learning this, with a fairly wide piece of tape that your eyes can see readily. So without thinking about it, I glance down there and I can safely grab my sword with my other hand. Now, as you progress and you get more and more used to doing this, you can make this narrower and narrower and narrower till it's just about the size of a thread, a red thread there. Because your eye will instantly pick that up and always know which side of the blade to put your hand on. And your enemy won't pick up on that. A real thin red line there in the heat of combat, he really won't know what that's for, but it's a good reminder for you, especially when you're fighting at close quarters, where you can safely grab your sword by. Now, moving down towards the edge, once we get past our fort, we're going to start sharpening. We're going to sharpen from the middle of the blade down towards the tip. As we do that, we're going to make the edge sharper and sharper and sharper till you get from here about 6 inches to the terminal end. Should be knife-like in sharpness. That's the business end. We want to do business with our cutlass and saber at the maximum distance from our opponent. We don't want to give up our reach. We want to keep him in extended range and cut him or stab him with the most reach that we can possibly generate, and that we get that by using just the tip. So 6 inches from the tip down the blade should be very sharp. Also, the back of the blade should be sharpened for the same distance. You want to sharpen down the back of the blade like this, so that's also sharp. You're never going to get it knife-like because it's too thick at the back, but you can get it reasonably sharp so that you can slice people with it, and you can also strike them in wrapping type blows and do a lot of damage with that sharpened edge on the back also. Now, let's talk about the point. Some sabers and cutlasses don't come very sharp. you're going to have to do some work with a file or a belt grinder or a bench grinder to get the desired point. That point needs to be acute, but it needs to be pretty strong. You can't have it paper thin or it'll bend over. And it's a little bit of work to get a happy marriage between too thin and too thick. You want it just right, where it's acute but sturdy, where it pierces but doesn't break. So you want a really nice, sharp, strong point, because this is a huge advantage in fighting, is have that really good point. So even if you have the smallest opportunity, you can penetrate. Even if the opening is only there for a real fraction of a second, you can go into that gap or that opening, make your insertion, get back out, do a lot of damage. So attention to your point is really important, especially if you're fighting opponents that have thick clothing on or some type of body armor on. So don't neglect the point. Now, let's talk about the handle. The handle should be sturdy and give you a really good grip. It should be on nice and tight. You don't want a loose handle. If your handle's loose, you need to fix it. Okay? You want a strong guard. I like this 3-bar hilt because it gives you good hand protection and it's not too heavy. It also gives you a set of brass knuckles. You can deliver a heck of a blow with these things, either with the blade up, the blade horizontal, or even down like this. You can punch at all different angles. Not only does it crush the facial bones and damage internal organs, what's really cool is if you miss and you hit another object, let's say you hit a concrete wall, you don't break your hand. You bounce off and you have a go again. When you miss on the street with bare knuckles and you hit that parked car, your hand isn't going to be the same again. You need that to fight with. The guard protects your hand and it gives you an implement to smash and crush and punch with. Don't neglect the pommel. In the Filipino martial arts, we call this the puño, to hit with the butt like this. This is really important in infighting. And one of the things that you can experiment with, if you have access to a lathe, is to make a custom pommel. You can take this one off and you can put on a bigger pommel nut to give you a little bit more power and a little bit more weight so you can hit even harder. So that's one way you can customize your blade. Now I want to call Joey out and I want to talk a little bit about the scabbard. This Napoleon sword, this is the 1830 Napoleon sword, comes with a heavy steel scabbard. It has an internal spring, so it retains the sword well, and it offers good protection. This is also a weapon in its own right. You can parry and block with this, and you can use it as a percussion instrument as well. You can stab people with it, you can hit them with it, you can push them with it, you can trip them with it. It can be a leverage tool. Don't overlook this steel scabbard. It's just like having a 3-foot long steel stick. So it's another weapon that you can access. Or you can give it to a friend that doesn't have a sword. If you're armed with a sword and one of your companions doesn't have a weapon, you take your sword out, give him the scabbard. He's still got a very, very lethal and devastating defense tool in his hands. So don't overlook the scabbard. As I mentioned earlier, I feel the sword is vastly underrated as a weapon. I want to remedy that right now. I want to teach you all the many advantages that cutlass and saber have to offer. As I touched on, reach is probably the greatest advantage they offer you. The sword, or cutlass or saber if you will, outreaches almost every other handheld weapon with the exception of a spear or a pole arm, which not very many people are carrying right now in suburban America. So you have tremendous reach. Sometimes that reach, as I've said, is as much as 6 feet just by extending it, and if you lunge, it is extended a lot from that. So you can reach a target depending on your height and the length of your arm and your ability, maybe 7, 8, 9 feet away. That's a lot of reach with a handheld weapon. So it pretty much outreaches screwdrivers, monkey wrenches, pliers, machetes, clubs, pieces of pipe, just about any improvised weapon that you can think of. The sword has the advantage on a reach. It also has surprising reach against enemies or adversaries armed with firearms. I mean, statistics tell us that 50% of all assaults involving firearms happen within 5 feet, well within arm's reach of the cutlass or saber. about 90% happen within 21 feet. That's about half of the distance that you can easily reach with your sword. An athletic person can cover that distance in about 1.5 seconds, even less, because we're going to run up to the 15, 18-foot mark and end in a lunge. So you're going to cover the distance from a person holding a firearm on you in maybe a second or less than a second. So you can deliver your sword at great distance very, very quickly. So the sword, saber, and cutlass have tremendous reach. That's a terrific advantage. The next thing is, and I really appreciate this about the cutlass and saber, is they require very little maintenance. You make sure when you get the sword that the hilt and handle are on tight, the blade is sharp, you've got a good point, and that you've covered it with protective oil or grease. That's about all the maintenance you need to do. Before you use it, you can double check that again, that everything is as it should be, and that's at the end of the maintenance. So they're almost maintenance free. The other thing I like about them is they're very durable. A good cutlass like our 1917 cutlass here is as close to indestructible as an edge weapon as you're going to get. It's very, very durable. You can break concrete blocks with this thing. You can stab it through car doors. You can punch with this hilt with impunity. You don't have to worry about breaking the hilt or breaking your hand. It's very, very durable. And that's a tremendous advantage. There's no small parts to break. There's no plastic stock to crack. It's just a fantastically strong weapon. And a lot of people forgot about that. The other thing I want to talk to you about is how affordable the sword is. We sell this thing for well under $200. That is an absolute bargain in a weapon today. A weapon that can do the damage this thing can for $200, it's just a fantastic bargain. Most swords sell for under $400. Most cutlass and sabers are under the $400 mark. It's well within, if you save your money up, it's well within most people's reach. So a saber and cutlass is quite affordable. The other thing I want to talk about is, unlike a firearm, there's never a negligent discharge. Firearms constantly have to be checked to see if they're loaded and dangerous. You have a lot of protocol involved with them that you need to constantly keep in mind to assure your safety and the safety of people around you. With a sword, with the exception of, as I spoke about earlier, about safety, with the exception of somebody walking into your point or you being really inattentive and accidentally injuring somebody, there's no negligent injuries with this. Everything you do is by intention. When somebody gets injured with your sword, it's not from a pass-through when you shot somebody. It's because you deliberately cut them or you deliberately stabbed them. You don't have to worry with your sword, if I stab this guy, I'm going to kill the guy across the street. Or if you're in your living room defending yourself in the middle of the night, that your sword blade's going to fly through the wall and kill your neighbor. You always have to keep that in mind when you're using a firearm. So there's never a negligent injury. All your injuries are intentional. Another thing I love about the saber and cutlass is that it never runs out of ammunition. This weapon is ready to work 24/7. It's not dependent on an ammo supply. When you're carrying a firearm, you're only efficient and effective as long as that firearm is loaded. Once you've expended your ammo, you're out of business until you get a resupply, or you're stuck with a poorly balanced club. With the saber or a cutlass, you're always ready to defend yourself and loved ones. And you can travel around the world with this weapon and not worry about where am I going to get my next supply of ammunition. You're always loaded with the saber and cutlass. The other advantage that I like about it over a firearm is there's no muzzle flash. You can strike with this out of the dark with absolute terror. There's nothing to give away your position. You're not going to light up the block when you use a cutlass or a saber. So there's no muzzle flash, and it's a big advantage. The other thing is there's no noise. When you shoot somebody with a .357 Magnum, there's a heck of a big noise. When you cut somebody with a saber or when you impale them on the point, the only noise is going to be their screaming. You're not going to alert 3 city blocks that you went into action, so there's no noise. The other thing is, With a firearm, when you're using that for self-defense, you don't have much of a continuum of force. Yeah, you can pistol whip somebody with it, but it's not that effective, and it also sometimes can compromise your weapon. You can break your gun or cause it to malfunction. When you're using a cutlass or saber, you do have a continuum of force. You can hit with the flat of the blade, this portion right here. You can slap people with that. You can hit them with the back of the edge. You can punch them with the hilt, or you can pound them with the pommel. So you do have a continuum of force. I can go from percussion blows to edge delivered blows to blows with the point. Now the point's of course the most dangerous. So your continuum of force is to punch and to hammer, to slap, to use the unsharpened edge. Then as you go up the scale, now you're going up into a lot more damaging blows. You're going to use the edge and finally the point being the most lethal. It only takes 3 or 4 inches in the right place to kill somebody. So when you're using that point, you're getting into very, very dangerous territory, and you're going to have a good chance of killing that person when you use that point. So that's the highest step on the ladder of your force continuum. Now, the other thing that I like about the cutlass and saber over a firearm is that it can be a lot more effective. Look at, you can shoot somebody with a 12-gauge shotgun 3 times and not have them quit what they're doing. There's all kinds of instances where people have been shot with slugs and buckshot, almost any handgun round you can think of, and even assault rifles, 308s, 223s. Lots of people continue their actions for seconds, if not minutes afterwards. I'll tell you what though, when you lop somebody's arm off with a cutlass or saber, they're pretty much done. When you cut their leg off above the knee with your cutlass and saber, they're pretty much done. When you split their head from the crown to the chin, they're pretty much done. With a cutlass and saber, you don't just make a hole in somebody. You can dismember them. You can cut their wrist off. You can cut their arm off. You can cut their head off. You can cut their leg off. You can cut through the clavicle, through the rib cage, all the way through the body and out the other side. You can't do that with a firearm. There's no firearm that will give you that gross tissue damage that you can do with a cutlass and saber. So it can be very, very lethal and very, very effective, had a lot more stopping power. Again, I want to reiterate this. You can shoot somebody with a .357 Magnum and not get them to stop what they're doing. But when you cut their head off with this cutlass, I can guarantee you they're going to cease immediately whatever nefarious, horribly dangerous, violent act they're about to perpetrate on you and your family. This is a fight stopper, an immediate fight stopper. Now, with that said, I want to be intellectually honest. When you make an insertion into someone, into a vital organ, you may or may not immediately shut them down. Quite often, you have to decrease the blood supply to the brain to the point where the brain blanks out and they stop their activity, and that can take seconds to do. You can short circuit that, if you will, by lopping off an extremity or their head. So the cutlass and saber can be far more effective in stopping a violent attack than almost any firearm. The other thing I like about the cutlass and saber compared to a firearm is it's legal. You can possess it, you can transport it, there's no national registration of it, there's absolutely no hassles from a legal standpoint associated with owning a cutlass and saber. Compared to a firearm, this is a dream weapon. When you get on an airplane, I travel with firearms all the time. Probably 6-7 times a year I fly with firearms, and it's always a hassle. You've got to check in, you've got to show them the firearms unloaded. The person behind the counter never knows what they're doing, so it's a kind of a tense, uncomfortable situation, and it adds about 40 minutes to your check-in time. So there's always a hassle when you travel with firearms. When you travel with your cutlass and saber, you put it in your checked luggage, into story. It's easy as can be to travel with a saber or cutlass. You don't have to worry about other states' laws. There aren't any. There's no registration on this yet. So that's something I would say right now. is now's the time to buy a saber, a cutlass, or a sword. There are no legal hassles about owning these things. That's a real advantage. The other thing I like about it is you can get a cutlass and saber anywhere. You can get them around the world. You can get a facsimile. You can be in Mexico and buy a saber. You can be in Indonesia and buy a cutlass or a cutlass-like weapon. You can get an edged weapon like a cutlass or saber almost around the world very, very easily and really cheaply. That same is not true for firearms. You'll battle in many countries around the world to legally or illegally buy a firearm, but you can almost always get a saber or cutlass or reasonable facsimile. The other thing is the saber and cutlass aren't too heavy. These only weigh 2 to 3 pounds. It's not like you're carrying an FN FAL that weighs 8, 9 pounds. This thing is pretty light and pretty easy to pack and doesn't weigh you down too much. You can put it in your gear and it's not going to wreck the scales when you line up at the airport. It's pretty light. It's also easy to transport. It goes into cars, it goes into trucks, boats, planes, almost any mode of transportation you can think of, you can take your cutlass or your saber. You can put it in musical instrument cases. You can make it very innocuous looking. You don't have to show what it actually is. There's lots of ways that you can disguise what you're carrying, and that's a real advantage. The last thing I want to touch about, and I started to do this earlier, is this is an absolutely terrifying weapon. One of the advantages over a firearm is that the cutlass and saber, when they're wielded by an expert, is an absolute terrifying weapon to opposing adversaries. The English, when they were fighting in India on the Afghan border, were subjected sometimes to absolutely brutal close-range assaults from Afghans wielding those long Khyber knives that sometimes were up to 3 feet long. And with these long saber-like weapons, the Afghans would cut people in half. They'd cut the heads off, legs off, arms off, and it was absolutely terrifying. And that's one of the reasons the English in the mid to late 1800s developed very heavy caliber, large caliber revolvers and single-shot pistols, is to stop close-range attacks with edged weapons. A saber or cutlass can be an absolutely terrifying weapon, a horribly demoralizing weapon. In the Falklands Wars, the Argentines were really demoralized to wake up one morning and find out that the English Gurkhas had infiltrated their lines and killed a number of their comrades with their kukri, their short sword. They were absolutely terrified. It just struck terror into the bowels of their heart. I mean, they were scared shitless over this. And that's an enormous advantage. A lot of people say, I'd rather be shot than cut. Well, if they could see what a cutlass or a saber would do, they'd say times 10. So that's just a good overview of all the advantages of a cutlass and saber, and particularly I've compared it to a firearm. As much as I love sabers and cutlasses as a weapon, I want to be intellectually honest and also acquaint you with their disadvantages. One of the disadvantages that I particularly don't like is the fact that one of my favorite weapons in the whole world is difficult to conceal, if almost impossible. The blade is 30, 31 inches long, and you add a 5 or 6 inch grip, you've got something 3 feet long. You don't really easily stick that down your pants and pull your coat over it and go out to dinner. So you're pretty much going to have to wear it in plain sight, or you're going to have to conceal it in some manner. So one of the big disadvantages is it's hard to conceal. Another disadvantage of the saber or cutlass is that it takes training and some ability and skill to implement it, to use it correctly, to be effective with it. In contrast, I can teach almost anyone to use a 4-inch 38 special out to 10 feet in about 30 minutes. I don't care whether you're 7 or 70, I can teach you to be frighteningly lethal with a 4-inch 38 special revolver and a half an hour's training. The reverse is not true for the saber and cutlass. It needs a goodly amount of training to become proficient in its use. There's no free lunch with this weapon. So that's another disadvantage. If I'm intellectually honest, I got to tell you the truth. The other disadvantage is the saber and cutlass is a relatively close-range weapon. Its effective range is about 10 to 12 feet. With a handgun, I can shoot very effectively at 100 yards, even 150 yards, but I have vast experience with a handgun. Most people can shoot very effectively out to 50 feet, 60 feet, even 75 feet. So the saber is limited and the cutlass is limited in its range, and that's a disadvantage compared to the very popular firearm. It also requires hand-eye coordination. You've got to learn to control the point of your saber and cutlass, and that takes time, that takes work, that takes repetition. I have an advantage in using the saber and cutlass because I've been fighting with a knife for 24 years and have vast amount of time in training and in sparring with the knife. When I began studying the saber, I got the benefit of all that training. So I got a huge leap ahead compared to most people in training with a saber and cutlass. You need to spend the time to learn to control the point and control the edge of your saber. It also takes some stamina and some strength. Now, to use a saber effectively, you have to have strong fingers, strong wrist, and strong forearm. So if you're elderly or infirm or very young, you may not be able to wield the saber effectively. So it's also dependent on your physical condition. If you're super out of shape and a couch potato, you may not have the stamina to use this thing to its best ability in a fight. So those are considerations that you have to think about when you're working with the saber and adopting that as a weapon of choice.
The grip is the key to ease and efficiency with the saber. When I want the saber to move quickly, all I have to do is turn my hand. The saber is an extension of my hand. By turning from vertical to diagonal to horizontal and back again to any of these positions, I can instantly change the direction of the saber. The grip is the key to that ease and efficiency. I favor a pivoting grip. If you put your hand all the way in here, this makes a great set of brass knuckles, but you've negated the rest of the options that this weapon has. This is one of the most versatile weapons in history. Don't do that to it, okay? You want this to be easy and fluid in your hand. I like this finger to wrap around. When you work with a training weapon, you're going to find it's a little lighter. You can put your thumb here to tell you where the back edge of the blade is. You make every parry or defense and every cut or offense with your thumb. By pointing the thumb, that tells you where the blade is going to go. When I'm working with a combat weapon of steel, it's a little bit heavier. So to give me a little bit more security, I move this thumb to a 3/4 position. That lines up the edge with the V in my hand. It's very much like shooting a pistol. I have this alignment, this skeletal alignment through my body. You're going to find that's a concept we're going to use quite a bit. It starts here with the grip. I line up the spine or the durable part of the blade with the V in my hand. This allows me to create this wall of steel. This allows me to be very easy and relaxed with the weapon. You're going to find at the end of every cut or thrust, it's important to be able to return to the center position so that you're always guarding yourself, so that you're always ready. The grip is the key to your ability to do that. Keep it easy, keep it loose, let it pivot in the hand. Footwork is one of your most essential tools to cultivate when working with any sword. Like Lynn says in all his knife fighting videos, you can't be a great knife fighter without great footwork. The same is absolutely true with the sword. I want to begin from the ready stance or the on guard position. The ready stance is just that. It means you are ready to move in any direction as the situation requires. Forward, back, to the side, on an angle. You're going to find your footwork is what's going to get you into range to be able to work effectively against your opponent and to get you back out of range and out of trouble. Should be as easy as walking, but that's going to take a little bit of work. Let's take a look at the first position, our ready or on guard stance. I have a line here. I'm going to split the line. Classic fencing position puts the line through the back of my heel behind my ankle, and I split this with my foot here. I would like to amend this slightly for your ease. Some of you have had some martial arts training, or you're used to this concept of center line. This is the center line that we're fighting for control of. You've got to own the center line. We're going to discuss later in the presentation, there's a couple different ways to do that. You can own it by occupying it, you can own it by giving it up and creating a new center line, thereby creating superior leverage for yourself. But that comes a little bit later. For right now, let's take a look at our stance. Okay, so I like to take and split this line ever so subtly. Your front foot points the direction you want to go in. Don't do this because it closes, it turns your body, it affects the rest of your body, and it's going to expose you on the flank or outside line. Be here. This foot points where I want to go. Classically, this rear foot is turned out at 90 degrees. Okay, this is to give you the power to drive through when we get to our lunges. More on that a little bit later. But for right now, your knees are bent. These are your shock absorbers. They're also your coiled springs. So they're ready to absorb energy and dissipate it throughout the body. At the same time, they're ready and coiled so that you can strike if you need to. Weights in the center. My body should be quiet. You want to be in a 3/4 position. Ways to assume that: I can be turning sideways, look over my shoulder, and pivot. I can be square and step back. I can be here. If I'm feeling a little more aggressive, I can move forward. Either way, my feet are going to split this line. For those of you who are martial artists and are used to turning this rear foot, that's absolutely fine, okay? What you don't want to do is turn the front foot. That's going to get you into trouble. So here I am here like this. This is my ready or on guard stance. All right, we talked about the ready position for the body. Now let's talk about positioning the sword. So I'm splitting the line. I'm about hips to shoulder width apart. My knees are bent. I'm in this 3/4 position. The reason I want to be in the 3/4 position is I don't have as much to guard. By stepping back, I've removed this shoulder ever so slightly. My arm will be extended, ready to attack or defend. I put the sword in my hand. Now, one of the great beauties of the Saber is this hand guard. It's such an improvement over so many other weapons that don't have this, as you will see when we move a little farther in the presentation. I think of this as my shield. I want my hand behind my shield. I want my elbow be behind my hand, my body behind my elbow. So I am extended forward here like this. If I put the blade on center line, I've exposed my elbow. This is slightly removed, but I'm open in all lines, as they say. So what I do is I turn my hand ever so slightly down, which allows the guard to help protect the back of my hand and underneath. I drop my hand to about the height of my belt or my waist. I extend slightly forward. Position of the left hand. Later on, when we start using a companion weapon, or this starts to become live in a checking position, depending as we move in closer to range, I'm going to utilize this to imprison my opponent's elbow and control his hand so that he can't use his sword against me. That comes for later. For right now, just take it out of the way. Make a little fist, put it on the crest of your pelvis, behind your belt, so this isn't forward. Because remember, if this is here, it's a target. Okay, everything has consequences. For right now, we're going to remove it. When we're ready to utilize that and discuss this, we'll bring it back into play. This sits on the crest of the pelvis, back behind, the sword is here, and when I pivot this forward, you're going to find that the end 6 inches of the blade occupies center line. This is my ready position. Let me show it to you from the side. So I've split the line. My hand extends forward. This shifts over so that my guard is covering the outside of my elbow. My elbow is behind my hand. My body is behind my elbow. Everything is behind this shield. Let's look at it one last time. From here, extend, see this shift over. My blade is still occupying and owning center line. I've created this barrier. Nothing is exposed. You can't hit what you can't see. What is closest to you is protected by my hand guard, the ready position. I want to introduce the concept of distance or measure, or the Italians refer to it as misura. It's the spatial relationship between two fighters, two opponents. Understanding this relationship is extremely important. It tells you where the safest place to be is and what is the most appropriate technique to utilize. We're going to start with, I'm going to call in my assistant and partner, Payson Burt. He's going to help me demonstrate this. Thank you, Payson. Good. I want to start from extended distance. This is beyond the reach where I can touch his blade or he can touch mine. This is the safest distance to be at to analyze the situation, to try and read how my opponent carries himself, if there are any weaknesses in his guard, in his balance. I'm safe out here. It's going to take him, it's very hard for him to hit me from this position. Oh, by the way, you'll notice that I'm not wearing any protective equipment. Don't ever do this. When you are training with a partner, as Lynn mentioned earlier in the safety segment of our presentation, always wear the proper protective equipment. I'm doing this for the purpose of making it easier for you to see me and to understand. Never do this. Okay, so we're here. We are at extended range. Neither one of us can touch the other's blade. And yet, I could still get to him with a combination of footwork fairly easily. So you're not invulnerable out there. This is just the safest range, an extended range. Long range, where I can just begin to make contact with his weapon. I'm going to come forward. This is called engagement. This is my opportunity to test his reactions, to see how he responds to what I do. If I press, does he press back? If he does, am I going to avoid it? Am I going to cut over? We'll examine those techniques in detail later on. Where I can just begin to touch, this is long range. From here, if I move in to where I can reach him, you'll notice from long range, it requires an additional footwork, whether it be a lunge or a pass, an attack on the pass, or two advances will pull me into range. All of these things we're about to cover in our footwork section, but you see how I'm going to go from an extended range into a long range, and then so on as I progress to reach my target. So here is our long range where I can touch his blade and begin to control it. Here is medium range where I can hit him from an extended arm, right? As I move closer, this would be checking hand range, where I can utilize this second hand to envelop or to take this hand and his weapon out of play, and then finally come on into a, hit me in a one. This would be a close range, where I can move in here, I can utilize this, I can start to work here, and we're now in grappling range, okay? So those ranges, extended range, long range, medium range, checking hand range, grappling range. And we're about to study the footwork that's going to get us there. Let's talk about one of the most important tools in your arsenal, footwork. As I said earlier, you cannot be a good sword fighter any more than you can be a good knife fighter unless you have good footwork. The better your footwork are, the better you're going to be. This is your delivery system. As I said, the hand aims. This nice grip gets the sword on target, but you've got to get into range, and then you've got to get back out again before you can be hit. It doesn't do you any good to go in there, hit your man, and have him hit you too. Footwork is the key, and it starts very simple, from your ready position. Sometimes I can't quite reach him with an extension of the sword. All I need is a step. Oh, that was great. And if he cuts back at me, I just move back. Step forward, step back. This is called the advance. You'll notice that I'm in my ready position. My body is quiet and in balance. This is vital. The heel lifts. The leg extends. I'm only moving the distance of about one of my feet. This comes down heel, ball, toe. The rear foot recovers, so I am once again back in my ready position. For our purposes, we'll keep the hand back here for now. Retreat. Advance, advance. Retreat, retreat. If you can do one, try doing two. Add a third. retreat, retreat, retreat. You should be in the same position that you started in. You should be in balance. Step forward, step back, advance, retreat. Sometimes you're going to want to step to the side, either to avoid a cut or to create an advantage for yourself. Stepping to the right foot moves slightly to the side, so you're moving parallel to the line, the rear foot recovers. You are still in your on guard or ready stance. Coming back, the rear foot moves first. You don't really want to do this and cross yourself over. There are certain instances where occasionally we'll utilize this technique, but it's very risky because if I'm run on at this point, I can get overrun. So when I want to move to the left, the rear foot moves first. Front foot recovers. So we have step forward, we have step back, we have step right, we have step left, back to center. And you're going to find a very useful tool when you're studying at home is get yourself some mirrors. You don't have to spend a lot on it. You know, just go on down to Big K or something, okay? Get some mirrors, put them up on the wall. It's important that you see yourself. You should float. Here, I don't want the hand position to move. I don't want my balance position to move. Do not be leaning forward. You're inviting a hit in the face. Do not unweight this rear foot. If I'm here like this, it's tough for me to unweight this foot to move forward again. If I'm here like this and my shoulder gets behind my heel, you're also off balance. You've got to be in the center. These are your shock absorbers. These are your coiled springs. It only works if you're in balance. So far we have forward, back, step right, step left, advance, advance, retreat, retreat. Sometimes I'll see an opening and I want to get in there a little quicker. I can move twice as fast with a pass forward. Pass forward means I pass my rear foot in front of my front foot and then recover forward. Pass back means I put my front foot back and then I pass back to the ready position. This is twice as fast. This is the same as doing two of these. 1, 2, 1 pass back. 1 pass forward is the same as 2 advances. So we now have advance, retreat, step right. I could do a pass forward from here. Step back, step left, pass forward, pass back. I'm in my unguarded ready position. One last thing I want to show you is a leg replacement. Here I am, my weight's in center, I'm in balance, my sword is in the ready position, guarding center line. I get a cut at my leg. Instead of moving, just move the leg back. Now there are 3 positions. One is straight to it. Sometimes you can rise to do this. For right now, I want you to stay down in this nice balanced position. So simply bring the foot back so that it's even with the rear heel and then replace it. If you need to move a little more, you can put it back here. Keep the foot parallel on the line. It slides. Don't run into yourself. Don't cross back behind. Straight back, straight forward. It's like doing half of your pass backwards, but you're going to recover back forward again instead of this. Our mechanics: advance, retreat, step right, step left, pass forward, pass back, leg replacement. Practice. You cannot practice this too much. This is your delivery system. You've got to own this. Give it a try. Let's add a very powerful weapon to your footwork arsenal, the lunge. The lunge is a sudden and explosive burst of forward momentum that rapidly closes distance and gives you the power to penetrate your opponent's defenses and, with the thrust, to actually penetrate clothing and flesh. This is something that you've got to create the opportunity for. You are never more vulnerable than when you have committed to an attack. And the lunge drives forward in balance and puts you within reach. But of course, if the enemy's in reach, so are you. You've got to create the proper moment for this. But first, let's look at the mechanics of it. I'm starting from my ready position. Here I am here in on guard. My left hand is back here. Always lead with the weapon. It's very important no matter what you do, whether it's offensively on the attack, and we'll discuss the various options very soon, or defensively when I'm defending and parrying. I need to have my body behind the weapon. This is my shield. My shield is always in front of me. I'm always behind my shield. Before I attack, if I'm going to close and enter distance, I need to threaten my opponent. My arm needs to extend, whether it be for a thrust or a cut. For right now, we're going to make it a thrust with my hand down. Okay? So my arm is going to extend, and the weight is going to pull ever so slightly forward. As the weight shifts to my front foot, I'm going to lift the heel just like I'm about to do and advance. As the weight comes out, I drive with the back leg, and I suddenly burst forward through my opponent's defenses, hopefully. Okay? Here I am here. Now, you'll notice when I did this, this hand moved from here to drop back to there. This is my counterbalance. All right? It's going to help drive me forward. So the arm extends, the weight shifts, this front foot lifts, the rear foot extends and drives forward. I want to come as level as possible. Let's see about how to get out of that. Now, this arm is back here. I'm going to take and bend this rear knee and recover the back foot forward. If I'm in this position, I can come back to here, or I can come back down to here. This is going to put this hand in this position, either to utilize or to get back out of the way. Once again, the lunge from the side. Advance, retreat. I see an opportunity. Extend on the advance, weight shifts, drive with this back leg, drive. I want my knee over my heel. I want my back leg straight. I want my back foot flat. Do not roll this over. You'll break your ankle. Okay? So here I'm here like this. Do not have this knee bend beyond your toe. You'll find it stresses the knee, and it's very difficult to get out of. Now, instead of pushing with the front leg, which will stand you straight up and leave you very vulnerable, what you want to do is bend the rear leg. There. So I can very easily glide back to my on guard, ready position, and get the heck out. Very powerful when connected with the rest of your footwork. So I can extend on the advance and lunge, recover back. I can pass backwards, extend and lunge, change my direction. I can recover forward, pass forward leading with the weapon, let this pass through and lunge. Recover back, step right, lunge, recover back, step left, lunge, recover back, retreat. It fits very nicely in with the rest of your tools. These will help get you into range. Remember, your footwork is essentially to lull your opponent into distance so that with a combination, you can suddenly reach him. The lunge. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to drill your footwork. This has got to become second nature to you. It's got to be as easy as walking, moving your body efficiently forward, back, left, right, quickly, slowly. You're trying to hypnotize your opponent. You're trying to create an opportunity and be able to explode into that opportunity and take advantage of it. The key is your footwork. This is your delivery system. You've got to train it. You've got to work on it until you don't have to think about it. What you train is what you're going to retain under stress. What's a lot of fun is to find yourself a partner, okay? Nothing simulates the energy you're going to start to feel under combat conditions than training with a partner. Someone else's energy that you have to analyze and read and flow with and work against. This is a real good place to start. It also kind of helps, you know. It gets a little dull going over the footwork all the time. Absolutely vital that you do. Find yourself a partner and a friend. Put yourself on a little routine. Let's see what we have so far. We have our on guard position. Rear hand, we're going to leave it back here for right now. Arm extends, blade covers center line, elbows behind the hand, body's behind the elbow. Advance, retreat, step right, step left, pass forward, pass back, leg retraction, on guard, extend, lunge, recover back, extend on the advance, lunge, recover back, retreat, extend on the advance, lunge, recover forward, pass back, retreat, step right, lunge, recover back, step left, lunge, recover back, pass forward, lunge, recover back, retreat, retreat, lunge. In balance. Easy, effortless. Make sure that your body is still and your legs deliver the weapon to target. Okay? Add those combinations, make up your own drill, but practice. Very important. All right, I'd like to add another tool to your footwork arsenal. This is called the passata, or attack on the pass, not to be confused with the passado. The passado is another name for the pass forward. The passata is an attack with the rear foot coming forward, like so. The advantage of it is it gives you an extra step of reach. If I am here with my lunge, that sudden explosive move, forward momentum, I have an extra steps distance here. This is a move that Lin uses quite frequently in his knife fighting videos. He likes to refer to it as a flèche because it's like an arrow. It comes straight forward like this. This is done in two ways. I'm here. The left foot comes forward, and I can either turn it out with the rear foot remaining parallel to the line, the front foot turned out, or I can do it this way with the front foot pointing forward and the rear foot back, almost like a reverse lunge. Let me show you that from a different angle. So here's my lunge, my passata, extend first with the arm. This comes forward and this drives. So I get a tremendous amount of extension here. I get an extra pace of distance. If you'll notice, I'm going to use this back line so you can see from here, all right, I had this extra reach here. So when I put that move together, it looks like this, like so. It can be very explosive, very surprising. It also affords you the opportunity, because you have come forward, to recover forward, which will put you into a checking hand or a grappling range. The passata, or attack on the pass. So far, most of our footwork has been taking place in the linear plane or on a straight line. Our step forward or advance, our step back and retreat, our pass forward or passado, our pass back, sometimes referred to as passado indietro, our passata, which is the attack on the pass. All of this is working along center line. If I shift to the side, I've simply still created a new center line that's parallel to the old one. I want to introduce stepping on the angle, what's sometimes referred to as triangular footwork. Those of you who study martial arts are very aware of this. If I'm standing here like this and I shift this right foot back, I'm now working on what is called the male triangle. You can run the base and come here like this. If you see Lin's knife fighting tapes, he's introduced and illustrated this concept very well. If I'm moving forward, this is the female triangle. Okay. What's important with the sword, however, what I'm doing combatively, I'm introducing a new angle where I can create superior leverage with my sword to overpower my opponent's defenses. But what you have to do if you're going to move here, you've got to keep yourself behind your weapon and reassume your on guard or ready position. Don't just make this move and stand there and expect to not get hit. You always want to be behind your weapon. Very, very important. So if I'm going to do male triangle, I'm going to shift back. This can give me some additional distance. This can stretch the distance and allow me to cut into my partner's attack. I can make him overreach. Similarly for the female triangle, which is a little bit more aggressive, it's an entering technique, I can shift to the side and parry, create a new center line, and then take advantage of that opportunity. Both on this would be the outside line, or here to the inside line. Make sure you get your foot behind, so you're back in this ready position, you're behind your guard. All right? The introduction of angular footwork. As I mentioned earlier, the saber is a cutting weapon that can also thrust effectively. It is one of the best and most versatile cutting weapons in history. The curve of this blade is designed to put a lot of cutting power on the selected target. This is a weapon that is most ideally suited from distance. You have a tremendous advantage at distance. Don't give that up in a hurry. Try to make your cuts within a hand span of the end, both on the true edge and on the false edge. We're going to examine both of those as we get in deeper into the cuts. The weapon should flow smoothly in your hand through the selected target area and coming back to center, ready to defend or to redouble again if there is another opening. Hacks and chops are for specific instances when you're at specific ranges. They're not the ideal way to use this. You don't want to turn this into a club unless you find yourself in very close range. Again, we will go into greater depth with that later in the presentation. Right now, I want to look at cuts utilizing the grip that we described earlier. Okay? Cuts can happen from vertical, diagonal, horizontal, upward diagonal, upward vertical. That's all on the forehand side. On the backhand or reverse side, you have your diagonal, your horizontal, your upward diagonal, and your upward vertical. And of course, cuts flow smoothly in all of these directions. They're called a lot of different things. This is fendante, montante, squalembrato. It really doesn't matter. As I said earlier, we will occasionally reference historical fencing terminology, but I'm interested in communication. Basically, think in terms of the saber can cut from any direction, rather like an asterisk. Here's my vertical straight down and straight up. Here's my diagonal down and ascending. Here's my horizontal forehand and backhand. Here's my ascending diagonal, descending on the backhand side. You can do downward in an X, horizontal here like so, upward. Make certain though, let's discuss a concept called proportion. Keep your movements as small as possible. You don't want to, if this misses, I don't really want to give the world to my opponent, okay? They should be small cuts. That's where this grip comes into play. My hand remains in center line. So the blade is always ready to come back, no matter what angle I'm working at. This is here. I'm back in my ready, unguarded position, ready to deflect and redouble my attack. Small, proportionate movements, cuts from every angle with both the true edge and the false edge. Okay? I can cut down here like this and return with the false edge. I can do a reverse cut and return with the false edge. I can fake here and switch to the false edge. This is a very versatile weapon, as you will see. Let's examine a couple of the types of cuts that are available. The most powerful cut comes from the shoulder, all right? This is the shoulder cut. You might think of this as loading up. This is a finishing blow. It is not one you're going to get to do unless you have created the opportunity for it. It is the slowest, it is the most powerful. But once committed to this, if you don't hit, you're in big trouble, okay? Another cut is the snap cut. All right, this is especially effective for exposed areas of flesh or skin, works great against the face, works good on the thumb or the fingers or the back of the hand. It's a great way if you can reach in. If he has a weakness in his attack or any of his technique when he's parrying and this hand becomes an available target, whack, hit it with this nice snap cut. This is where this pivoting grip is especially useful. A parry and a snap to the hand or a parry and a snap to the face. You can pretty much take the fight out of any opponent. All right? Close range, because this isn't sharpened on the back, you can actually push. You can support with this, although you want to be very careful with it. You could get in here, and if you've entered range, you can smash this into your opponent's face. Very, very effective, but not a standard cut. All right? This weapon is ideally suited for a cut that is a combination from the elbow through the hand and wrist. All right? We're going to call this our elbow cuts. So shoulder is the slowest and most powerful, but leaves you the most vulnerable. The snap cut, fingers and wrist, Okay, this is very effective, but only against exposed areas. It will not penetrate heavy clothing. Okay? And the wrist and elbow cut, this is what this blade was designed to do. It's the best balance between speed and power while maintaining your central guard position. Let me bring Payson in for a second. I'll give you a quick demonstration. Thank you. From here, if I'm going to step into our essentially medium close range, where I can actually reach them with an extension here like this, I would have had to work myself to this distance. If I had the opportunity, here's my heavy blow. Here's a diagonal, here's a reverse diagonal, here's a horizontal here. But you'll notice it's a pretty big motion, okay? My snap cut here, like that, it's unpleasant, sorry. It's going to get his attention. If he were to throw a blow, say, to my high chest, I would parry here, and I could snap there on his thumb or fingers. I'm not going to do that because we won't be able to use Payson for the rest of the presentation, but you can see it. I'm going to go to his guard like that. Okay? If he comes over here, if I pick this up here, I can snap to his hands or fingers. Right now, I'm going to the guard so that I don't hurt my partner. I could come from here and snap to the face. Okay? That's the use of the snap cut. Ideally, the cut I'm going to use is from here, and this is going to return me here, so that once I cut, and if he continues on, I'll still pick it up, and I can cut again. Okay? Combination of from the elbow and wrist, go to my head, here, and there's a diagonal cut. Go up here again, here, and I can take it on this side in the reverse. Doesn't matter. Okay? Thank you, Payson. This is the cut we will use most. Again, it's the ideal balance between both speed and power, with this pivoting grip allowing you to return back to this central ready position. There are two other cuts that I would like to cover and add to your vocabulary. One is sometimes referred to as the Polish cut. I think that's a bit of a misnomer, but let me explain. There are cuts with the flat of the blade. There are times when I can deflect and I could snap down and hit you on the forearm or the back of the hand using the flat of the blade. I could take deflect you to the side and perhaps come up into the side of your face. We'll examine that a little bit more a little later. That's using the flat of the blade. It's quite humane, actually. The Polish cut utilizes the tip of the blade. It's similar to a rapier technique called a stramazon, where I am tearing with the tip of this. Typically, I might parry or defend and come down, and instead of using the true edge of the blade, I would shift a little lower and just tear across your face, your belly, the diagonal of your chest like a bandolier with the tip of this. Just simply shifting my hand back and forth. Okay, can have a tearing effect with the tip of the blade. It's a harassing cut. It's designed to make you bleed. It's designed to take some of the fight out of you. Okay, can be very useful when properly applied. Also, I want to mention the cuts with the back edge. Okay, quite often done in a retraction. Okay, there are a couple ways you can do cuts. You can do cuts that flow through. This is like a drawing cut, as we mentioned before. That's the ideal cut from the wrist and elbow. All right. You can do push cuts. The snap cut is essentially a percussion, but it can also advance forward like a push. All right. I can also come forward and draw back like so. That would be another variation of the drawing cut. I'm drawing through the target area and returning back to center line. With the false edge, I can have my hand down and insert and cut on the way back on both sides. Very effective, very elusive, very hard to defend against. Payson, can I have you again for a moment, please? So from here, just drop your guard if you would. Again, we have vertical down, vertical up, diagonal down. Now, on the face, I can have vertical, diagonal, horizontal, upward, vertical, up, upward, vertical, upward, diagonal. Same thing here, vertical, diagonal, horizontal, upward, and here. All right? All very useful. From the fingers, a pushing cut, a snapping cut, here like this. Okay? My true edge drawing cut, forehand, true edge drawing cut backhand. Notice that I am maintaining this center line with my hand. I'm not letting my arm get way over here. I'm not withdrawing from my own box or my own body dimensions. This is called proportion. Keep it small. All right, here. This would be a loaded upcut, but very slow. If I do this, he's probably going to hit me on the arm because I've exposed myself. Do not withdraw in order to attack. Everything comes forward. Back edge. If, for example, I defend here, this is right here. This is an ideal time to use this back edge on this side or on this side, because once, again, if I defend out here, I'm right there. If he comes to the inside and I'm here, I'm right there. That's going to do it for him. Finally, my Polish cut here, actually don't parry. My Polish cut here, I'm going to feint. Go ahead up to a 5. When he goes here, I'm going to go here and I'm going to tear. I'm going to tear right across here. What would be more effective would be here. I come to here and feint you back. Give me the other, give me a 5. Here and here, I'm in here. I can just slash with the back edge. Face, neck, chest, belly, for that matter, up here, okay? So some application of the different varieties of cuts that we have. A very versatile weapon. We've introduced a variety of cuts. That doesn't mean that they now belong to you just because you've looked at them. You've got to train yourself. You've got to develop an efficiency and an ease with these different options, right? Just like we drilled our footwork, and you've got to spend the time on that. That's your delivery system. Here is what you're about to deliver. This is the mail. All right? You've got to be able to recognize the opportunity. You've got to be able to flow into it, because your partner's not just going to stand there and say, please hit me. Right? You've got to create the opportunity, and then you've got to be able to execute your plan. I recommend building yourself something to train with. This is called a PEL, or a training. It started, initially these things were just poles. You could use a pole, you could use a telephone pole if you had one. You have to be very careful though, because this is an investment. Cold steel makes a beautiful saber. That doesn't mean you want to go out there and trash it by banging against a tree or against a telephone pole. If you're going to use something like that, don't whack full power at it, okay? You're looking to develop finesse. Anybody can load up and hit hard, but if that's what you're going to do, you may as well have a baseball bat, right? This is a tool, all right? You want to take care of your tools. I recommend you build yourself something like this. This has a 4x4, central pillar, and then we've taken and we've put tires here that we've cut in half and mounted. This gives you a series of angles. It also gives you something to help protect your sword. But let's talk a little bit about training. We're training to imprint muscle memory, all right? That doesn't mean that you want to be loading up and going full power all the time. You're really not going to learn much there, right? What you want to be looking on is the specifics of things. How's my hand position? Am I staying in center line? Am I being efficient with my cut? Am I getting too big? That's always going to be your biggest problem. Slow down, all right? You can get faster later on, but I tell you, and I'll tell you over and over again, speed comes from doing less, not from working harder. All right? Build yourself something like this, and then make yourself up a drill. Start with, okay, here's my distance. I'm going to move not from long range. I'm going to move to where I can stand here in my guard position, extend, and put the end hand span on the blade. This is your greatest working tool. Again, your advantage of the saber is distance. Don't give it up easily. All right? You really don't want somebody in close enough to put their hands on you. And if your enemy is in range, so are you. Keep him away from you. This tool is ideally suited for that. So we're going to work here on this hand span. And I'm going to look here and I'm going to turn. Now remember, the blade follows the hand. Angle your hand. The blade will follow. When I want to do a vertical cut, I'm right here. When I want to do a diagonal cut, I just turn my hand and squeeze. When I want to do a horizontal cut, I turn my hand palms up. Spanish have a wonderful way of putting this that's very specific. This is called uñas arriba. It means nails. Nails up. Uñas adentro, which is neutral, straight up and down. Uñas abajo, which is nails down. And uñas afuera, which is twisted. And you'll see the application for this later on when we introduce the concept of guarding with the sword, where I am attacking and defending at the same time. Be specific with your hand position. For right now, I want to go straight vertical. So I'm going to extend and squeeze. I'm going to extend and squeeze. Here's the snap cut. Here, here. I don't want to come up. I don't want to break my wrist, okay? We're going to introduce a concept called skeletal alignment in just a moment. You want to be sure that this is part of your whole body. My entire body is the weapon, all right? Anytime I bend my arm here, this is the quick strip disarm. Those of you who do martial arts will know this very, very well. Anytime I can put all the pressure into one small area, the sword's mine. I can take that away from you like that, okay? Don't be constantly throwing away your control of the weapon. That's why you want to be here, this nice pivoting grip, squeeze it into your hand. If I extend and reach you here, that snap is going to do a lot of damage. This is sharp, okay? Extend and squeeze. There's my snap. Or I can extend, squeeze, and push a little bit, all right? From here, turn to the diagonal. Extend and snap, extend, squeeze, and push, okay? Over here on the backhand, extend and squeeze for the snap, extend, squeeze, and push. Still notice that I'm keeping my hand here. I'm not pushing and lifting and coming way up there, all right? Now, let's back up just a little bit here, and let's start to work the distance of the wrist and elbow cut. So I'm here. Here's my vertical, coming down. Coming down. Notice I'm not hitting very hard, and I'm not going very fast. Save the real thing for the real thing. Every once in a while, you can go quarter power, half power, maybe 3/4 power, but then back off. The more energy you're using, the less aware, the less sensitive, and the wilder you're going to get. Slow it down. Imprint good habits. So again, we have our vertical, we have our diagonal, working from the elbow here. Notice how I'm always coming back here. And this hand pressure, okay, it releases, I make my cut, I pass through here, I'm hitting here, passing through the body. Once I have come even with the outside of my body, I'd better be rolling back over to control center line. Do not do this, okay? All you've done is offered your opponent your entire body, all right? So here's the diagonal. Now the horizontal, here, returning back to center. Palm up. You'll notice everything cutting to the inside or the chest is palm up, all right? Whether it be vertical, diagonal, horizontal, or upward here, and I'm going to return. Everything cutting to the back, the outside, or the backhand, or the reverse cut is a variation of palm down. Here's my diagonal, here's my horizontal, here's my upward diagonal. Notice I am working the hand span, I am working from the elbow, wrist, and fingers, and I am staying close in proportion, keeping it small. Work your pel. Slow down. Be specific. Practice. You can make up your own patterns, but let me offer you a couple of suggestions. Remember, you want to be specific. You want to train. Get used to the weight of this, all right? It can be a little bit unwieldy when you first start. You've got to learn to balance this in your hand. You've got to train yourself so that gravity becomes an ally instead of an adversary. Don't fight with your weapon. Again, the key is the grip and the fact that the blade will follow your hand. Keep your motions small. Bigger motions have a tendency to pull you off balance and out of position, okay? But you want to train with this because it's going to develop stamina. It's going to develop speed because, again, you're going to start making smaller and smaller motions. That's the key to speed, smaller motions, all right? And it's going to develop consistency. You're going to be confident that you can, flow right into that opening and put the business into the blade where it's going to do you the most good. Let's take a look at a couple of very simple patterns. The X pattern. I'm going to go, again, I'm going to get my distance. So I want to be in my nice guard stance and in a position where I extend, I'm putting the last 3 to 5 inches of the blade on the target. X pattern, downward, downward, upward, upward. Again, downward, downward, upward, upward. Notice how I'm turning the hand and then squeezing and drawing through. This is a combination. It's not the snap cut, it's this drawing from the elbow. Now, you can pick a line and go downward diagonal, turn the hand over, downward diagonal, and you'll notice this is circling. This is called Molinello in Italian, Moulinet in French, which means windmill, or redondo if you've taken Spanish and you've worked espada y daga. So I am circling this. This is the key here with the hand turns over. The blade remains in center line. Very important. You've got to own center line, or your partner, your opponent is going to come and he's going to get you. All right? So again here's the downward angle. On the reverse, here, notice how the hand turns up. That immediately positions the blade to turn the hand down again. Very simple actions, all right? So downward, downward. Let's shift. Upward, come around, upward. On this side, upward, turn the hand again, upward, and downward, downward. So try repeating on the line. You also have your horizontals here and here. Now notice when I come here, this pulls and goes back straight across. As soon as I've finished the line, I'm returning. You can go down and up. Down and up. On the reverse, down and up, down and up. Notice these are small proportionate movements. All right? Be specific. Train a little bit. Don't overdo it. You're going to have to build yourself up to this. Okay? Try to relax and feel how when you turn the hand, the blade moves in your hand. This is a beautiful thing. Okay? This is one of the ultimate creations in the sword maker's art. Saber. Practice. Parries and skeletal alignment. These are a couple of concepts that I want to explain to you. They're going to be very important to our system. We've shown you some of the offensive capabilities of the saber. Let's talk about defending against that. Okay, a parry is the act of erecting a barrier between you and your opponent's attack. There are different kinds of parries. There's absorbing parries where I take his energy and dissipate it throughout my body. There's deflection parries where I pull that energy around myself, but I still want to pull him forward off balance so he falls into my weapon, really. And there's percussion parries where I'm going to deflect him with something that's just a little bit more active. We'll cover those as we go. The first one I want to introduce is absorbing parries and this concept of skeletal alignment. What I'm looking to do is get the most strength with the least amount of effort. I want to utilize my skeleton and my bodily structure as opposed to the muscles. Anytime energy gets focused into one small area like this, like my wrist, I'm going to come up short. Okay? I want something that I can erect here and know that nothing is going to come through that. Okay? If I take advantage of this, again, one of the great inventions for the sword is this guard. That's what the saber has, this lovely hand guard. It's my shield. I want my hand behind my shield, my wrist and forearm and elbow behind my hand behind my shield, and my body behind that. This is parried out in front of me. Does me no good to pull it back here. I want it extended slightly forward. I want to set up an angle so that I dissipate the energy around me. Okay, I create a wall. I like to think of it as standing in a doorway. When I assume my ready stance, I move back inside the doorway. Anything that tries to reach me, I simply deflect into the door jamb. All right? We're going to start with 5 parries. First one comes, if the blade is in a scabbard and I draw, this would be prime or 1. This is second or 2. This is tierce or 3, quart or 4, cant or quint, depending on how you like to pronounce it, or 5. All right? Now, what does all that mean? Let's simplify this. If my body is cut down the middle and in half, okay, I have a high inside or chest exposure. I have a high outside or shoulder. I have a low outside, which is my hip. I have a low inside, which is my belly, groin area that's down in here. I'm going to focus on everything from the break in the hips up. These were originally cavalry parries, so this was where most of the work was happening. Of course, things can go down to the leg, and my low parries will move accordingly. For right now, we're going to start with the 3 on top. 4, 3, and 5. Okay? Let's begin with 5. If there is a cut to my head, most people will do this. Okay? I dislike this for a couple of reasons. One, because my elbow is not behind my hand, I have no structure. All right? So I'm very weak against a powerful blow. He's going to crash this parry and hit me anyway. All right? The other thing is I don't like pulling this back towards me because I've essentially invited my opponent inside my guard to hit me. And even if I manage to make him miss my head and face, he's going to pick up a piece of my body here. I like to imagine that I've extended my arm here. My upper arm is now in the position I want it to be at. I simply release my hand slightly. Again, that nice relaxed pivoting grip, which allows my elbow to drop under my hand, and anything coming at my head, I deflect up and over. It's extremely fast because it's very small, okay? You'll notice this is level, break, extended. I am lifting it up and over. Do not drop your arm and then go up because, again, you've created an opening. A skilled opponent will take advantage of that and whack you, okay? So I'm out here like this. This stays level. I bend and lift because that's where I want the energy to go, up and around me. That's the head parry or 5. From this position, blade's in the right place. All I'm going to do is drop my hand and create a 45-degree angle, okay? So from here, I've automatically cleared the target area. Oh, hand behind the guard, elbow and forearm behind my hand, body behind my elbow. Notice this is slightly in front of me at a 45-degree angle. The distance here, 45 degrees, is the distance is the same that I just traveled. If I were in my on guard position and I dropped to a 4, the elbow would come back towards the body, doesn't have to be jammed against it, just slightly towards getting ready to absorb, shift to 45 degrees. Again, blade's in the right place, 5. Now, when you come up, do not keep a strong grip on this or your elbow's going to go out here. You've got to release your fingers. Now, the nice thing about your hand released like this, it's like having a gun that's cocked. The trigger is pulled back, bam, away you go, okay? So this release is actually time saved. There's my 5 down to my 4. Now, I've protected my head and my chest. How about my shoulder? I'm going to shift to the outside. Now, most people will teach you a 3 here. This is fine against a light sport weapon. This is a combat weapon we're talking about. This is something with substance and power, being driven by somebody who's determined. You want to continue on out until your elbow is behind your hand. Now I have created a vertical wall of steel. Now, later on, we're going to adjust these positions to where the tip remains a little bit forward when we start doing angulated and deflection parries. But for right now, I want this vertical wall. So I am as strong at the top of my blade as I am at the bottom. Now, let's discuss that for a second. Here's my blade. Here's the middle of my blade. Top half of the blade is the business end. Top third of the blade, I like the hand span up here. This is where I do most of my cutting because it allows me to stay away from my opponent, okay? Parries should be made in the middle of the bottom half down towards the guard. That's what this is for. You have the thickest back edge here, gives you the greatest substance, and you are protecting yourself. This is where you want to catch your parries, okay? Once again, from here, I'm going to lift to my 5. I'm going to drop to my 4. I'm going to come straight across to my 3, straight back to my 4. Notice how I'm automatically clearing the target area, and I'm not moving anything unnecessarily. To go from 3 to 5, there's a trick. Because if I do this, I haven't done anything to clear the target area. But my hand's in the right position. If only the blade was here, I could lift straight up. So here's the secret. I'm in my 3. I turn my hand towards the ground, and I let the tip of the blade fall. The tip of the blade will describe a half circle, and I lift straight up to 5. So from here you're going to find, turn the hand, the blade fall. I'm getting gravity to do the work for me. Our first 3 parries, 5, 4, 3. From on guard, straight back to 45, 3. Back to on guard, straight back to 45, 4. Back to on guard, lift to 5. To 4, to 3, back to 5. Your first 3 parries. Let's put together a little training drill with a partner. So it's going to give you the advantage of having a partner's energy and a specific target, and also we're going to exchange some back and forth. Quick little review. Remember, here we are in the middle of the blade. I want to be working the hand span, the top third of the blade at most. Remember, I only need 3 fingers of steel to get the job done. Don't get closer than that. You do so at your own risk. I'm going to be parrying with the middle. Here's the upper blade, sometimes called the foible or the déboulé. This is the middle of the blade. This is the bottom third of the blade. This is the forte, F-O-R-T-E. Good word to call it because it's the strong of the blade. It's where you're widest across the back. There is some argument over, do I parry with the edge, do I parry with the flat? Lynn's going to address some of that later, but right now you definitely parry with the edge, okay? This is what this sword is constructed. This is how it's its strongest here. It's 1.25 inches at least wide. Nobody's going to be able to cut through that and get to you, okay? Sword is very weak like this. You can do deflection parries where you're not having to sit there and take that, but if you get caught in this position, you want to be using the edge. The edge is what lines up with your skeleton. It is the strongest barrier that you can create, all right? Payson, if you would. Thank you. So I'm going to start from long range, this engagement range. Neither one of us can hit the other, so I'm going to have to step in. I am going to step into range, I'm going to extend, and I'm going to cut his head. Now, you'll notice that I'm in the middle of the top half of the blade. This is about right, and Payson is parrying. He's released his fingers, so his elbow comes underneath. He's in a good 5. He's extended forward. This part of the arm is even with the floor. He's horizontal. He hasn't dropped his elbow or let it go off to the side. He creates this angle. If I pull through, he's not there. Right? All of those things are in operation. I'd be just a little higher, right about there. There you go, because I'm taller than you are. Good, so I'm here. But you'll notice I am close enough that if he doesn't parry, I can hit him. But I'm no closer than I have to be. I'm not here. You're going to get a knuckle full of guard if you move into this position. Okay, so start training yourself to recognize distance. Start developing that awareness. So I'm going to extend and cut his head. He's going to cut my head. I'm going to extend and cut his shoulder. Parry 3. Good. He's going to extend and cut my shoulder. I'm going to cut his chest. And you'll notice he has to circle to get inside. He's going to cut my chest. Good. And I'm going to come back to his head. Now, this time we're going to trade. He's going to come to my head. I'm going to go to his head. Good. He's going to come to my shoulder. I'm going to go to his shoulder. He's going to come to my chest. I'm going to drop underneath so that I automatically clear the target. And he's going to have to drop underneath me. Turn the hand and reach. All right? So that's a basic parry and cut drill where we're each working on developing distance, developing on being specific in our targets. Right now, I'm coming in vertically, and he's coming in vertically. I'm coming in horizontally. Now, here's a little something. Parry head and cut my head. Now, Payson is, Payson just self-corrected. If you'll notice, do what you did before. He was coming in and offering me this. This is why you own center line. So if I cut his head and he retracts or doesn't drop that hand, quickest disarm there is, just take his arm, okay? So what he wants to be sure and do is he drops his hand forward. Watch, if I do this, if I raise, hit me, take it, all right? So when he cuts my head, what I want to do is I want to drop my hand here. Now, if he tries to cut me, there's nothing there for him to hit. I would love for him to cut into me. Go ahead. I have his blade. He's mine. Okay? So that's where the proportion comes in. That's where you make this small, and this is where you learn to recognize it. Just like in any martial arts system that you study, things happen from center line. Okay? My attacks come down center line. I deflect things away from me. You guys already know this. You just have to add a new vocabulary to what you already know. Those of you who have trained. Those of you who haven't, this is a great martial art. You're going to love it. Be specific, work on your distance, make specific cuts, be aware of where you are making your parries. And for right now, they're nice, easy extension and squeeze or snap cuts. Practice. Let's take a look at the low line now. We already covered our 3, 4, and 5. Notice that when I assume these positions, I drop my hand. Dropping my hand makes the blade go vertical. That's what I'm looking for right now is a vertical wall of steel as a defense. From my 5 position, if I were to pivot from the shoulder and change nothing, this is number 1 or prime. Again, from a horseback position, this protects my horse's neck and my rein hand. For our purposes here, it's going to protect everything from the shoulders on down to the knee. If I have to go lower, I'll lower my body and the parry. I can also use this very effectively vertically high, diagonally high. This is, those of you who have had Filipino work, this is like a wing. This becomes a roof block when you start adding body angulation and angled footwork. Okay, and we're also going to take a look over here at what would be a shield position, but we'll get there in a minute. So from right here, if I'm in my 5 position, again, when something's right, we don't want to move it, so I'm just going to pivot. There's my 1. Now, I like to parry this a little higher. I don't like to be here and leave this door open. This is going to be parallel, okay? And from here, you'll notice I still have that elbow behind the hand, body behind the elbow here. So I have this skeletal alignment. If I move back through center and shift over to here, this is my 2 position. Again, on horseback, this is going to protect my horse's throat and my leg. Many people will teach you a 2 that looks something like this. I don't like a bend in the wrist because, again, energy is concentrated in one small area and you can find yourself overpowered at the worst possible time. Another way that I like to get there, if I'm in my 3 position, I'll lift my hand because I have the angle set up. If I lift my hand, the blade passes down through center and I drop the tip until it protects the outside of this front knee. That's my 2 position. Some people looking at this go, gee, that's all the way out there. That's a long ways away, isn't it? Points on center line. That's just about as fast a riposte as I can get. If I shift to this, I've got you, okay? I like it out here because it gives me my skeletal alignment. Now, I want to get gravity to work for me. So when I parry in the high line, I drop my hand. When I parry in the low line, I lift my hand. I shift over here to 1, straight back to 2. Drop the hand, lift 3. See the blade pass through center and clear it, straight across to 4. Straight up to 5, back down to 4, over to 3, lift the hand to 2, straight across to 1. Cut, head. Now from here, I can come to 5 or I can come to 6, okay? Now, if I am in a 5 position, this gives me a very fast snap cut here, or a very powerful wrist and elbow cut here, anywhere on the forehand side, okay? Conversely, if I come to 6, this gives me a very fast snap cut to the inside and a very powerful reverse cut to the outside. So there's going to be times when we're going to apply. 6 is very similar, especially if I go to angulated footwork, it's going to be my high wing. All right? So those of you who have studied Filipino will understand that positioning and that application. Lynn's going to cover that a little more fully later. All right? But the important thing is now, when I parry 6, right, because of the 3/4 position, just like with my 4, I only need to go toward the inside of my guard as even with the outside of my body because my shoulder's retracted. Same thing here. When I parry 6, I lift. My hand is even with my outside shoulder. It does me no good to come back over here, and I certainly don't want to do this. I want to be out here in front, so I'm extended here. So the difference between my 6 and my 5 is just here. It's all forward. It's all here like this, okay? And again, fast, powerful, fast, powerful. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give it a try. Let's practice a drill that puts all of these parries and basic cuts together. Remember, do not do what I'm doing, which is practice without a mask. Make sure you're always wearing safety equipment. This is very important. If you're hurt, you can't train. If you hurt your partner, he's not going to want to work with you. So train safe. Good. Now, I'm going to start at long range. So one of us will have to step in. It's going to be me. I'm going to go to this, again, medium range where I could just reach him. All right? I'm going to start from this medium range distance. So I'm going to step in, and we're going to trade the same line. So I'm going to cut low inside, 1. He's going to cut low inside. I'm going to cut low outside. He's going to cut low outside. I'm going to cut high outside. He's going to cut high outside. I'm going to cut high inside. He's going to cut high inside. I'm going to cut head. He's going to cut head. I'm going to come back 6, and he's going to cut 6. Notice how we're keeping everything proportionate, and we're going fairly slow. All right, let's start again. This time I'll let Payson begin. So we're going to start here. Payson will step into me. And we're going to count 1. I'll return to 1. He'll go to 2. Notice how I have to come up over the top. And 3. I'll return to 3. And 4. I'll return to 4. And 5. 5. And 6. 6. And then we would step back. He would step back from where he started. Okay? Very simple drill. Take your time. Okay? This isn't the real thing. What you're trying to do is cultivate skills. You're trying to be specific. You're trying to be proportionate. In other words, small motions. Pay attention. Are you fully extended? Is your weight in balance? Are you specific on your targets? Is this loose in your hands so you're getting that nice extension and squeeze? This is going to be important. Okay? When you go faster, when you start working harder, you don't want to get disproportionately larger. Okay? Again, your speed is going to come from your working smaller. And try to get the weapon to work for you. Now, let's add one other element. Let's add the lunge. So, from my engagement distance, remember, drop your blade for a moment, Payson, I am the distance of 1 lunge away. Or the step in. That would bring me back to medium range. So from here, I am going to lunge and cut his 1. He's going to lunge and cut my 1. Good, I'm going to cut his 2. He's going to cut my 2. I'm going to cut his 3. He's going to cut my 3. I'm going to cut his 4. He's going to cut my 4. I'm going to cut his 5. He's going to cut my 5 to 6 and count backwards. And 5. Good. And 4. And 3. And 2. 2, 1. 1 and back out of range to our engagement distance. So you're practicing distance awareness, specific lunges, extending the arm, loose, relaxed hand, specific targeting, vertical wall of steel, absorbing skeletal alignment parries. Give it a try. Okay, you guys are doing great. Let's make things a little bit harder. Let's complicate the footwork just a little bit so you're going to get a chance to apply some of the more complex and quicker footwork motions. Start developing an awareness of how this changes your distance. See the big picture. Use your whole vision. Don't focus on the sword. Again, the sword will hypnotize you. Watch the body. Everything is going to build off an advance. We're going to start with an advance and lunge, and we'll go to 5, 4, and 3. Then we'll do an advance and pass forward to 5, 4, and 3, and then we'll do an advance and passata. The difficulty in this is the reason I'm throwing the advance in, it's real easy to do single techniques, be it a lunge or a passata or a pass forward into a lunge. What's difficult is to be able to pass through this ready position every time and be able to go advance and then pass forward and retreat and recover back so that you're always moving in this balanced position. Your feet are always underneath you. That's the most important thing. Keep your feet underneath you, your body quiet, your arm extended, your weight occupying center, specific target cuts. Okay, here we go. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to start from this engagement distance, meaning I have to close range. I'm going to advance, he's going to counter with me, and then I'm going to lunge. Good. He will advance, I will recover, he will lunge. There's our 5. I'm going to advance and lunge to 4. He's going to advance, 4. And I'm going to advance, lunge 3. He's going to advance, lunge 3. Good. Now, I'm going to advance, pass forward, cut head. I'm moving quicker. I almost overran him, so he has to be aware of that distance change. And he's going to advance. I'm going to recover. As he passes forward, I'm going to pass back. And if I need to, I'm going to stretch the distance. I had to do a little step and slide there. Coming to 4, advance. So I'm threatening with the blade. Pass forward, lunge. He's going to advance, pass forward, lunge. I should have matched that, but there we go. Advance, pass forward, 3. And advance, I'll pass back, 3. This time I'm going to advance and passata, 5. And I'm really going to stretch here. Good. He's going to come back to his on guard, advance, and I'm going to need to take another retreat back and maintain this distance, okay? Now to 4, advance, passata 4. And he's going to advance, passata 4. Good. And advance, passata 3. And advance, passata 3. Great. Okay, now let's go down to 2 and do a leg replacement. Advance, so you're back into your on guard. When I passata, remove the leg. Good, so that gives him just a little bit of extra safety, and it gives us another opportunity to apply some of our footwork. He's going to come back to me, and when he advances, he's going to passata, and I'm going to remove this out of the way. This gives me the opportunity to be able to recover with some other applications. Lynn's going to go into that in detail later on. Okay? Be specific, stay in balance, keep your feet underneath you, be aware of your partner's energy, slow down. Practice. Since the sword is principally a cutting weapon, one of the best, let's take a look at the application after a successful parry. Thank you, Payson. We're going to start with Payson's going to cut my head. Again, remember, we're doing this in a controlled situation. Do not practice without the proper safety equipment. So Payson is going to cut my head here. We're going to work from this range, my medium range, so I'm within cutting range. I can reach him by simply extending my hand. Again, I'm going to cut my head. On the inside line, I have vertical, diagonal, horizontal to the face, diagonal, horizontal, upward to the body, and down to the leg. Let's take a look at that. So head, head, head diagonal, head horizontal, head diagonal to the body, head horizontal to the body, head down to the leg. From here to the outside line, he's not giving me much, but the nice thing about this guard is if he comes here and I press, I'm going to push him out of the way. I've trapped his blade in my guard. Another one of the reasons why you want to stay in center line, because you're going to travel straight down that line to his head, to the diagonal. Okay, I've got caught in his guard. But I'm still in center line, so if he'd come back to me, I'd still be there, and I could try somewhere else. Head to the arm, head horizontal to the body, head down to the leg. All right, let's take a look at our 4 parry. Inside line here. My direct riposte straight to the head, diagonal, horizontal here. Same thing on the outside. Let's just look at a couple. Straight vertical. There's my nice snap to there, to there, to here. I could cut down through and use that more powerful cut. Okay? I can also cut below the blade. So you'll notice the first grouping we're all above the blade because I'm inside him. If I find that he's very quick and is starting to move, I'll go underneath. Okay? So this can go under the arm. This can be an upward here like so. This can also be down to the leg, a good target. All right? And I can go to the inside line here. This would be more of a snap cut. This would be a drawing cut. And again, down to the leg. Let's look at the outside line. From a 3, straight to the head. My diagonal on the inside, my horizontal, my here right across the throat, to the outside here, here, here. Nicely I can take the line, it's right there in center line. Okay, I can go to the outside down here like so to the leg. I can also go under the blade. Again, from here, under the blade, and come back to center because I want you to come back to my head after I cut. Here, he's going to come to my head, I'm there already, and I'm going to do it again. You're going to own center line. Very, very important, okay? Let's look at our 2 low parries. Go down to a 2. From a 2, we haven't talked about the thrust yet. We're going to cover this in a minute, but that's right there. It's one of my favorite things about 2. But from here, I can come inside. I can come down to the leg. I can come over here to the leg on the outside. I can come here, over here like this. I can also come above the blade on the inside, or I can come above the blade on the outside. Let's look at our one of my favorite parries and one of the most powerful returns. Okay? One of the reasons why occasionally you will not only parry in the low line in this one position, cut high, I'll also take this up here. Okay? It also sets up the opportunity to come in on angular footwork and take that blade and take control of it and use the checking hand. Lynn's going to cover a lot of that later on. But from here, vertical down, diagonal, horizontal. I'm not hitting very hard because you are very powerfully loaded up in this position. Okay? I can also come here and chop, come here and take the arm, come here and drop under the blade. All of those are possible. Last parry, the 6. He's going to come to my head. Remember I mentioned that we have a very fast riposte here. We have a very powerful riposte here. So just like in the 5 vertical, the same thing is with the 6 to my vertical, the 5 diagonal, the 6 diagonal on the outside, the 5 horizontal, the 6 horizontal here. Okay? Some of the applications in a direct riposte, you parry and immediately go to the target of opportunity. Go back to your Pell, do some work. When you train with your partner, wear the proper safety equipment and take it easy. You're interested in control, you're interested in small movements. You start wailing away, somebody's going to get hurt, and you're really not training yourself good technique. Okay, now you've got the idea of the direct riposte. Let's put it out to a slightly more appropriate distance. That was an extension range. You're going to find yourself in that range, but it's very dangerous because you are equally at risk. So we're going to stretch this out a little. Distance equals time. Distance affords you the opportunity to see what's coming, to mount a successful defense, to avoid it. It gives you more options. Also, it makes my opponent come to me. He has to enter in order to be able to strike. So let's extend our distance a little bit to our long range. He's going to have to come to me in order to be able to try and hit me. Again, I'm not going to be wearing a protective mask. Do not practice this way. Wear the right equipment. Great. So here we are in extension range. I can't reach him. He can't reach me without closing distance. He's going to lunge to my head. Okay? From here, if he stays there, I'm going to hit him straight on the head. Again, in this variation of vertical, diagonal, horizontal. Or I could, do it again, Payson. I could go here and come straight down there, where I'm closing center line and pushing him out of the way. If he retreats, if he lunges and tries to get back, I'm going to follow him. Okay? Again. So here, I'm going to follow him like that. So as he's going back, I'm going to cling to him distance-wise and then get back out again. All right? Let's take a look at that same thing. And again, head here. And I'm going to go to the body now. Okay? Very nice. Do it again. And this time I'm going to pursue him and then get out. All right? And I'm going to go to the outside. If you stay, I can just reach. But if you don't, I'm going to have to follow and then get back out again and make sure this sword stays on center line. Okay? Okay, now, let's look at just a couple of the other angles here. Now, being here, this is great. I just love to come straight up into here. You don't need to do a lot because I am above his blade. I'm already inside him. I want to ride him. And his natural inclination is going to be to try and parry that. Most likely, do it again, most likely he's going to parry it into himself. Okay? I can also go to the outside. If he's here with me, all I need to do is extend. If he starts to recover back in a hurry, I'm going to follow him. Okay? This is a slightly more appropriate distance. Again, take care of your partner. Be careful with this. This works for all of the lines. Okay, let's go down to the low line. 2. From here, I'm going to come straight back to center. I didn't really need to move because he didn't. But right this time, if he moves, here, see, I can go down. I can take that leg because he was starting to cover himself and then get back to center again. This stays and owns center line to the 1. If he stays, I'm going to be right there. If he moves, I'm going to go with him. Okay? Once again, move. Great, and I'm just going to be right there on top of him. All right? So move out to a slightly more realistic range where your partner, who is acting the part of your opponent, has to come to you, has to penetrate your distance. Start reading the ability, maintain the distance to still be able to riposte to the most convenient target of opportunity, and if he tries to retreat, follow him. Make that adjustment of distance, that awareness of distance where the two of you are connected. Give that a try. Okay, we've investigated the direct riposte. Now let's take a look at the indirect riposte, meaning I'm finding myself against an opponent who's very fast. He's very skilled. He's quickly covering the line, and it's making it difficult for me to make a successful counterattack after I've managed to defend. So what I'm going to use is a technique called a feint or a false attack to get him to commit early, and then after he's committed, I'm going to go where he's not. That brings us to one of the philosophies of pairing. One of the reasons that we try to keep our motions very small is we want to wait for as long as possible. If you commit early, you open all kinds of opportunities to your enemy. So you want to wait, you want to wait, you want to control your distance, you want to make him come to you, you want to wait until you know for sure that's the real attack, and only parry that one. You're going to have better opportunities for counterattack, and you're going to be a lot harder to hit. Okay? So let's take a look at this. We're going to go back to our medium range, where it's just an extension and I'll be able to hit. Again, this is a slightly artificial range. You'll find yourself here, but it's not the range you really want to fight in. You want to expand that. We'll do that in a minute. But first I want to illustrate the technique. Right. So we're here. I can just reach him. You'll find that if he parries me, there we are in that end hand span, middle of the top third of the blade. Payson is going to cut my head, and I'm finding when I come back, he's already there. Okay? Go again, a little faster. He's there. Oh, I'm not able to get through. So I see that he's very fast, that he reacts very quickly. So the next time he's going to cut my head, I'm going to go here, and then when he commits, I'm going to go where he's not. So I'm going to start this to where he thinks I'm going. I haven't committed my blade yet. I give him that look, I try to convince him that it's a real attack, and then I go where he's not. And my opportunities are hand and wrist, elbow, body, leg down here, or here on this side. Now, because he has a fairly vertical parry, I've got to be sure that I open the hand. Did you see how fast the blade moved? If I'd done this and tried to go around, I'm still caught on his blade. So I'm going to see where that is. Here, oh, it's there. I'm going to turn my hand. Ah, now I can get in. And I have that whole range of inside targets. Right? Makes sense? Goes for the same for any of these parries, from a 4. 4. If I find that he's getting quickly up to his 6, okay, I will go here and go where he's not. Oh, that's nice. One of the problems with the 6 parry is it has a tendency to expose a great deal. So you usually try to go to a 5. Curl it. Do it again, a little quicker. There, do you see how small his action was there? And he was still able to get there on time. So if I'm finding that he's able to get there, here I'll go where he's not. Okay, and quickly get back to center. Let's go to a 3. From a 3. Now, if I come here, he's going to have a heck of a time getting back there. He's not going to be able to make that circle 4 that this would require, especially not from this range. So what's likely is he's going to lift to a 1 and deflect me. So if I find he does that, I'm going to go here, hey, and I'm going to go where he's not, and I'm going to take it. Or I'm going to go here and shift to there and take the target of opportunity. Do you understand? So it's an indirect riposte. I give him the feint, I let him see the false attack, but don't commit the blade. And as soon as he commits early, I'm going to go where he's not. Let's go to a slightly more correct range. So we're back here like this. Payson's going to come to me, cut my head. Good. And I'm going to return as he retreats. And he's closing out very well. So the timing is going to be a little more like this. Here, and down, and get out. Okay? Let's look at another angle. Same thing to the head. here. I make him go, and then I go where he's not, and I get back out again. All right? Let's go to a 4. 4. Now, if I come here very quickly, he's going to have a hell of a time. This is where he's quite likely he's going to get back. So his distance gave him the opportunity to make that counter parry. So from here, when he goes back, I'm going to follow him and evade that circular parry and go underneath it to whatever target is available to me. I could conceivably even do this and come inside again. All right? Once I get him to commit, if he commits early, he's mine. And that's what you want to do. Let's look at the 3. 3 here. Again, if I can get in there very quickly and beat him, if he stays in this range, he's going to have a lot of trouble getting there. If he backs up, he's going to be able to get that blade on mine. Okay? He's pretty quick. So this time he's going to go here, I'm going to go here, and I'm going to avoid him. And I'm going to go where he's open. Okay? And when you have a cold steel saber with that sharpened edge, you don't need to bring a lot of power. You just have to bring the weapon. Put the edge on it. Get that squeeze of the hand. A little bit of the elbow and wrist. It's going to have an effect. Indirect riposte, stretch the distance, be specific, keep your motions small. Okay, we're starting to get into the good stuff, huh? I want you guys to start paying attention to things that are happening to you in the training process here. The cool thing about training with a partner is things come up, all right? Start looking at them as problems to solve, okay? It's not, oh, you weren't supposed to do that. It's, oh, okay, what just happened there? Analyze it and see if you can come up with a solution. I want you to take a look now. We've been doing absorbing parries because I asked you to erect this vertical wall of steel, okay? We're going to take a look at something now where I find myself in this crisis of distance, and I want to have a couple of options. For example, if Payson comes here, right, and I immediately riposte, if he doesn't get back, he's never going to be able to get around for that circle parry. But if, as he did before, he retreats and recovers, that's going to give him time because distance equals time, okay? Now, I'm here. If Payson comes back to above my blade here, directly to my face, especially with a lunge, I had better get out. But if I find myself where I don't have time to do that, okay, I have 2 choices. I can freeze it out by taking this position, this 6 parry, and lifting it, and then coming back down on center line. Or, again, from here, and shifting to a target of opportunity. So I'm not going to freeze. My other option is to take and redirect this and remove this leg so that this can come through, and then return back on center line. Because again, center line is mine. This is what I want to keep. Okay? So if I find myself here, I'm going to do a descending parry. It's just like parrying this 3, but I don't have time to get around for the circle. If I'm here like this, I'm going to parry 3 and drop, and then immediately go back to his face. You see that? So start to experiment a little bit with stuff like that. Start to see what's going on and see what some of your options are. We're giving you tools. I want you to begin to apply them. But be aware of your partner, keep your partner safe, and start enjoying this knowledge that you're beginning to digest. We're moving into more advanced applications of our basic techniques. We're starting to become more active. There are kind of 2 attitudes for combat. You can be very active. You can try to provoke opportunities. You can be a little bit more passive and wait and counterattack. This, I want to take the parries that we've been working with, this wall of steel that we've created, this barrier from our absorbing parry system. Okay, instead of stopping and absorbing and dissipating the energy, I want to start to manipulate the energy of his attack a little bit. I want to take a look at beat or percussion parries. Now, if Payson were to cut my head, This is my nice absorbing parry. I've created a barrier that he can't penetrate. I'm dissipating that energy, and I'm going to work into my counterattack or riposte. With a beat parry, I'm going to take that same idea that I was using to beat and move the blade aside. And I don't want to stop the energy. I want to allow it to go. I just don't want to be there. So I'm going to angle my parry ever so slightly. I'm going to bring it ever so slightly forward, but I'm not going to violate this alignment, this skeletal alignment that is the secret of my strength. I'm simply going to bring it to his blade, angle it slightly, and with the fort or strong part of my blade, deflect it and open a door. I don't need to do much because I'm going to open center line just by moving him ever so slightly. That's all I really need or want, okay? So from my 5, I can angle and drop straight down. I can angle and move in. I can actually manage to get both at the same time where I'm controlling both his arm and striking, all right? If he's coming in at a diagonal, I'm essentially going to be doing my 3 parry, my shoulder parry, but I'm going to match his angle. I'm going to bring this ever so slightly forward. I'm going to bring my fort to him, and I'm going to take his energy and just deflect it off slightly. Again, I don't want to stop it. I want him still coming forward, falling into my blade, literally. Okay, and here, straight down. Here, into the face. Here, even over the top with the thrust. Okay? I'm just opening a window. I'm utilizing his energy against him. If he comes to the inside line, from here, this would be my absorbing parry, my wall of steel. As he comes to me, I'm going to angle this slightly, and I can go right here. I can turn my hand down and come straight up into the face. I can be here and throw this point. All of these are possible. Again, I am catching him on the fort of my blade, and instead of it being a vertical wall, it's become a bit of a diagonal, and I'm adding just a little percussion, and it doesn't take much, just this turn of the hand. Again, this flexible, pivoting grip is the secret to be able to add a small compression. It's not unlike a pass when you're doing empty hand work. Okay, so if he comes to me here, boom, once more, and I'm going to use his energy against him. I'm going to ricochet off of it, okay, just like a deflection. So those are your percussion or your beat parries. If he comes on this side, I can take it here and come up from underneath. Okay? I can take it here and come down from the top. So I am redirecting instead of stopping that energy. Percussion or beat parries. Let's look at another way to manipulate the energy of your opponent's attack. I like to call these clinging parries. It's not unlike sticky hands. I don't want to stop his energy. I want to take and redirect it while monitoring his blade with my blade. So if he suddenly tries to change and pull out of it, I still have control of his weapon, and I can still open that door and create my own opportunity. Let's take a look. Now, this works particularly well against somebody who really commits to attack, who overreaches a little bit, who puts a lot of energy into his cut. So somebody who is coming at you with lots of power, you're going to take that power and move it around yourself and flow right into that door. Okay, let's start with a cut to 5. Now, here's my absorbing parry, coming in. Here's my deflection or percussion parry. This is my clinging parry. I'm going to start the angle here, and I'm going to move from 5 through 3 and drop. And I'm going to supplement it with some footwork. I'm going to start to step either to the side, or I'm going to start to step on that angle, that female triangle we talked about. So I'm doing 2 things. I am meeting his sword, redirecting it, moving my body, both of which comes together to open up this line, this center line, and expose his arm. His arm is the closest target. Take that one first. So from here, if he gives me a good, there it is. I'm just not there. Now, if I do this, he can recover. If I give him something forceful like this beat, he's liable to react very quickly if he's a quick twitch kind of fighter. But if I'm very subtle and sneaky, that's all I really want. I only want to manipulate a little bit, and I am clinging and monitoring. See, if he tries to cut back into me anywhere, I don't care where he goes, I've still got his sword. I'm monitoring it from one parry position to another position until I feel this door is open sufficiently for me to flow into it. Let's take a look at the inside line. So my 5, sorry, go back to vertical again. My 5 here, I was taking over here. This is the outside line. From the inside line, I'm essentially going to be parrying my 6, okay? But from here, I'm going to shift inside. And again, I haven't absorbed, I haven't beat, I have taken and monitored and moved out of the way. And I can come straight down here, right onto the hand and wrist. Great way to disarm. I can come here and shift up to the arm. I can come here and shift up to the face. I'll take any one of those things. And I'm still in position here. If he comes back to counter, I'm in center line. I'm ready. I still own center line, especially because I've moved off and given myself a little more distance, which gives me a little bit more time. Okay, let's look at a cut to the inside. Here's my absorbing parry. Here's my percussion parry. I don't want him to be that reactive, so from here, I'm going to shift. I'm going to move this foot back with this leg replacement. I can go down to his leg, a neglected target. I can come into his body. I can come here. Do it again. I can come here and shift here and here. I'll take that. I can come here and come up to the face and come back down to the hand. Okay? I can also shift out, which now lets me have that. All right? So we're now applying the manipulation of the energy by utilizing the blade, by making slight adjustments in our parry positions, because I know I've got this barrier, and the application of my footwork to change the center line, to give me superior leverage. Let's look at the outside line. Here's my absorbing parry. I'm going to take and dissipate that energy. Here's my beat parry. Here's my clinging parry. Okay, I'm going to allow this to go where it wants to. I'm just not going to be there. Straight thrust. With this thrust, you'll notice I'm guarding with the blade. If he tries to come back, I'm occupying the space. He can't get there. Okay, I can also come here and shift up. I'll take that and immediately back down again. One of the reasons, as we reminded you, that you keep this stuff small is your immediate return along the same line. Okay? Also from here, I can thrust up center to the outside. All of my targets are available because, a little more forceful, I'm letting him go where he wants to go. I've just removed my body. Okay? You can even do footwork and shift way over to here if you want to. I'll take that and just continue to move. So we're using angled footwork to move ourselves out of harm's way. Let's take a look at 2, particularly a high 2. Now, if he's cutting low at my leg, I will most likely do this. I will shift from above, like we talked about before. But if he comes a little higher and I take this here, I can come forward and jam this. And now I've got center line again. So I'm here and I'm shifting. So if he comes a little more forcefully, I'm going through one position, 2, and manipulating up to this position. This just opened this whole door for me. I have the whole inside line. Let's look at from this side. That's a little more difficult. I would probably from here shift and lift up and come down here. So from my 1, I'm going to come in here, just lift it slightly, drop underneath, and angle off to the side. So take a look at that idea. You're clinging to it. You don't want to stop the energy. You want it to go where it wants to go. You're just going to displace your body, either by removing the leg or by moving on your angled female triangle. You can also stretch back into a male triangle, but it's that application of all the elements that we've been studying so far. One of the great things about studying a variety of martial arts is you can start to rediscover the truth and apply information in other places that you might not have thought of before. I'd like to take a look at a technique. It's a meet the energy, ride it, and then redirect it. From my studies with Guru Dhananda Santa, this is called the cambiata. It's very, very useful, especially against a forceful attack. Payson? I'm going to illustrate this coming in from the inside line, this forehand, which is a very popular blow, especially with people who aren't particularly trained. If somebody loads up and gives you a very powerful blow, I start with my absorbing parry. So I set up this barrier. Once he encounters this, I'm going to take and lift this energy, get myself out of the way, allow it to go where it wants to go, and help it along the way. So once again, I'm going to meet it, I'm going to ride it, redirect it, and then I'm going to continue on the cut. So with a little bit more force, it's right there, okay? I can hit him as hard as I want or as easy. Once I'm here like this, I can come down center line. I'll take that. And it's nice because I have shifted from the inside to the outside line. I am monitoring his blade. I can have anything here or I can move to the inside. All of that is open to me. Okay? It is the same idea of here. If I was in closer, I can shift it from above like this. But we're going to get into checking or companion hand range later on. This is still done from out here. But I enter, redirect, I ride that energy. So again, I don't want to stop it. I don't want to stop it. I want to move it and get out of the way. And then continue on. Meet, ride, redirect. As we said earlier, the saber is primarily a cutting weapon that can also thrust. The use of the point, I think, is much underrated, especially in a curved saber. Lynn is going to show you some applications later that are nothing short of extraordinary. When lethal force is required, the point is often the way to go. It has the ability to penetrate, it's extremely fast, and often it's going to be the quickest response after a successful defense, or if your opponent has a hole in their technique. If they're sloppy with their guard, if they retract in an attack. If you own center line, all you've got to do is just place this point and they're going to run onto it. Very, very useful, very valuable. Let's take a look at positions. Here's my on guard position, all right? Here is my palm down, called supination or uñas abajo. Here is my palm neutral here, like this, with my thumb on top. Not the best position because it exposes your thumb and your hand. This is better. This is better. I've still got a little bit more protection here. So here is palm down. Here's hand neutral or uñas adentro. Here is uñas arriba, nails up, or supination. You'll notice the curve of the blade gives me the opportunity. I can actually go around your guard. Be careful when you're doing this that you don't expose your arm, but you're going to find if you go around center line, this is going to get very elusive, especially with some angular footwork. All right? One of the things about this is a position, as I say, this is the preferred position for the saber. Also this is uñas afuera, or you're turning this down. It's a rapier position, or guardia, which is called prima. But the point is, I am here, my hand is being protected, and the point is on center line, ready to do its job. Okay? One of the things about this neutral position, it's quite underrated. Thrusts up center line are very elusive, very, very difficult to defend against, and very surprising. So the point is a very useful additional tool in our arsenal with the saber. Right, if you want to have something in your arsenal, you've got to practice. Point control is very essential. You really need to cultivate this. You're going to have to practice it. Let's go back to our trusty Pell. Let's work very slowly, be specific. You're going to lead with the point. Remember, whenever you're doing any attack, but especially the point, the arm extends. You aim with the hand, you deliver with the leg and body. Your footwork is your delivery system. This is the male. This time it's going to be kind of a pointy message. We're going to start with different distances. From here, I'm going to go to where I can extend. I would like to see you go palm down, neutral, palm up. You can come level, you can come from above, you can come on the diagonal, you can come up center line, you can come on the diagonal, you can come horizontal, you can also come from above on this side. It's a little trickier, okay? You're going to need to practice that. So essentially, just like you have the lines for the cutting, you also have the lines for the thrust. There's center line, diagonal, horizontal, upward diagonal, upward vertical. On the inside here, both sides, all right? Stretch now. You'll notice here I am here where I don't need a lot. Again, 3 fingers of steel penetrating the body is going to hit a vital organ. Don't get yourself any closer. If he's in range, so are you. Look that if I step back slightly and I have a slight lean. Now I still have this front foot unweighted. I'm not over here with no weight on the back foot. The weight's still on my feet, but by shifting, hinging here slightly at the waist, I can get a couple more inches of reach. So again, I've got my vertical, diagonal, horizontal, upward, and so on. I'm going to go out just a little farther. I'm going to step in and get back out. I'm going to step in and get back out. I'm going to set the hand, step in, get back out, step in, get back out. I'm going to go out to lunging distance. You want to learn what these distances are so that you can apply them. If I can lure somebody into this distance, oh, that's great. That's all I need. And get back out again. So lunging from palm down, the diagonal here if you like, up here. Coming from below with an ascending thrust is very tricky, okay, very elusive. Here and even here, although this is a lot less likely because it's hard to control. And finally, I can go back another step. I'm not in lunging range, but I am in passata range, okay? So from here, I'm going to set the hand, it's going to extend, and I'm going to drive forward with that rear leg, okay? I'm going to set the hand and drive forward and come back and try that from all the angles. Lead with the point. Very elusive, very tricky, very effective. Okay, to take full advantage of this new tool in our arsenal, the thrust, you've got to learn how to deliver it. And I would like to introduce the concept of engagement or blade contact. In our on guard position, I will sometimes move from my extended range into the long range where our blades touch. Now, the engagement or contacting of the blades, it sets up a barrier at an extended range. It also gives me the opportunity to see how my opponent reacts to stimuli or perceived threats with pressure or beats. It gives me a chance to be able to control his blade too. So with that idea in mind, thank you. We're going to engage. So here we are at our extended range. Nothing is in range until one of us moves, okay? And I'm contacting his blade. Again, this becomes a conversation. If I press, what does he do? Does he press back? Does he just stay? We're going to examine some possibilities of what to do a little bit later in the video, but for right now, in the presentation rather, the DVD, but for right now, if I press and he presses back, I'm going to do what's called a disengagement. And in other words, I'm going to unengage. A disengagement usually goes under the blade. You'll see here we are engaging on the outside line, okay? So when I press and he presses back, I'm going to disengage and lunge and hit ideally, all right? We could also engage on the inside line. So here we are here. I'm simply going to turn my hand slightly up. I still have the guard working in condition. This is extended. This gives me a little bit of time. He would have to enter to be able to utilize this. If I press and he presses back, I'm going to disengage and hit. Okay? Now, if I do that, I press, he presses back, I disengage, and he lateral parries. Go ahead and parry. Good, like so. he has successfully defeated that. When he comes back to me, he's going to extend to me, and I'm going to parry. Go ahead, thrust. Good. This time, I'm going to extend and feint that straight hit. He's going to go for it with his lateral parry. I'm going to deceive his lateral parry and then hit. So there's the deception of the lateral parry. Let's look at that again. I am going to press, he's going to press, I'm going to feint, he's going to parry, I'm going to deceive by disengaging under the blade and hit. That's the deception of the lateral parry. You can also do what's called a 1-2, which is a deception of two lateral parries. Let's build it from the same basic structure. Again, this could happen on both the inside and the outside line. We're working with the outside line to start with. I'm going to press, he will answer back. I will disengage. I will deceive his first parry. He will come right back with a second. I will deceive that, and I will hit. Deception of two lateral parries, both 4 and 3. Now, he's getting a little tired of being hit. So what he's going to do is he's going to employ a new technique, which is the circular parry. So if I press, he presses. I deceive. He does good. Instead of doing a lateral parry, he can do a circular parry. Do you see what happened? So here, press, press, deceive, and circular parry that picks me up. Right? Well, if he can do something, I can do something to deceive that. So the deception of a circular parry is called a doublé. I will press, he will press, I will feint a straight hit, he will circular parry, I'll deceive his circular parry and hit. You see how elusive the point is. Let's look at that from an engagement on the inside line. First, we will do a disengage. So I will press, you will press, I'll disengage and hit. Okay? So now he's going to do a lateral parry. So I will press, you will press, I will disengage, he will lateral parry, I'll deceive the lateral parry. That's the disengage. I will press, you will press, I will deceive one lateral parry. Oh, you did a circular parry, I'll deceive that anyway. So that was a doublé. Once more, two lateral parries. 1, 2. I will press, you will press, I will deceive one, deceive two, with two disengages. That's a 1, 2. This time he's going to do a circular parry. From the inside engagement, I will press, you will press. He will do a circular parry, I will deceive the circular parry. That's a doublé. So no matter what he does, there's something I can do about it. If I have the ability to read, and if I keep my movement small and in proportion, and I control my distance. So this is, we're starting to apply everything that we've learned from before. You've got to practice, you've got to have these tools at your command, because it's going to get subtler and more, it's going to require greater sensitivity and awareness. So get your basics. Okay, if you're going to be able to take advantage of this arsenal of new thrusting options, you're going to need to develop point control. This is very subtle and elusive, and it really relies upon your delivery system, your footwork, to put this to its greatest advantage. So we're going to have a little drill. This is designed to give you your awareness of distance, your work with your partner. We're actually only going to hit on the final thing. It's going to be that same progression of straight thrust, to feint a straight thrust, disengage, circular parry, to deceive the circular parry. Let's give that a try. Right. We're going to start in the outside line or the 3 line, and my palm is going to be down. So from engagement, I'm going to press to create an opening, and I'm going to do a straight thrust. Payson's going to pick it up. He's going to pivot on my blade so that his point comes in line with me, and he's going to thrust, and as I recover back, I will pick it up. I will feint here as he goes to parry it. I will deceive by dropping underneath and replacing in the same place. He will employ a circular parry. He will extend, he will deceive my lateral parry, and I will pick him up with a circular parry. I will extend, deceive his lateral, deceive his circular, and hit. He will do the same with me. He will extend, deceive my lateral, deceive my circular, and as I'm still searching for his blade, he's going to hit me. Let's look at the inside line. We're going to engage on the inside. Blades at center line. I'm going to press. This offered me an opening. I will go straight. Pace will pick it up. He will pivot on my blade. He wants to follow this in like following a jab. I will deflect him. I will feint a straight hit. He will go for it. I will deceive by dropping underneath, replacing the point. He will do a circular parry. He will come to me. He'll follow my blade. He'll deceive. He'll come. I will do a circular parry. I will now avoid his circular parry defense. As soon as he's gone by, I'm going to hit him. Either palm up, neutral, or palm down. He will do the same thing with me. He will feint a straight hit, disengage, deceive the circular parry, and hit. Same thing happens in the low line. Let's take a look at down here. We're going to engage again on the outside. I'm going to press. Actually, I'm going to lift my hand a little bit, see if I can get him to come with me. He took the bait. I'm going to drop underneath and do a straight thrust. He's going to pick me up in a 2. He's going to come back and try and get me here. I'm going to deflect him in a 2. I'm going to feint the straight hit, go over the top now. He's going to parry out. He's going to come here. He's going to deceive this, go over the top, and I'm going to pick him up with a circular parry. I'm going to deceive his lateral parry. I'm going to deceive his circular parry and hit. He's going to deceive my lateral parry, my circular parry, and hit. Okay? So it's an application of the same principles. Now let's look at one more parry. We've had 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. These are all pronated, absorbing parries that are able to parry both a thrust and take the impact of a blow. This parry is called septime, which simply means 7. Okay? This is a deflection parry. This is best designed to deflect a thrust coming in. This is the one you want when you want to create a barrier that can take power. This one just removes the point and leaves yours online for a quick riposte. So just like 2 is over here, if I turn my hand up, this would be 7. Just like 3 is here, straight across to 4, straight down to 2, turn the hand up, and here's your 7. I don't go beyond the outer limits of my body. This is slightly extended forward, just like my 2 here, just like my 3 and 4. Everything is always in front of you. So in the low line in 7, we had engaged on the outside, now we're engaged on the inside here, okay? We could be in a high engagement, we could drop down to a low engagement, go ahead, and I'm going to extend. He's going to parry 7. I'm going to parry 7. I'm going to feint a straight hit in 7 and deceive over the top. He's going to feint a straight hit and deceive. I'll circular parry here, deceive his lateral, deceive his circular, and I'm going to choose this to come in underneath. He's going to do the same. From your 7, you're going to see my lateral, deceive my circular, and hit. Oh, and there we go. Work slowly. Be very specific. Lead with the point. Make sure the arm extends for 2 reasons. 1, the attack has to begin here. Also, if you want to execute a good feint, you have to convince your opponent, that this is a real attack. When you are setting up a feint, use everything the truth. Don't commit the legs. Okay? That's your secret. That's what makes it a feint and a false attack. The entire body is there, except I haven't committed my distance. So I can still get out of it. Give that a try. Okay, we've been using the vertical absorbing skeletal alignment parries so far. They've been especially effective against powerful cuts. I'd like to take a look at riposting with the point and making a slight adjustment in my guard. Okay? From here, instead of parrying vertically, if I can see that he's committed to this, sometimes I will angle this parry ever so slightly, okay? If I can read the angle that it's coming in, see, this gives me a wall of steel that works all the way from my belt on up to the top of my hairline, all right? This, I'm going to ensnare it out a little bit farther in front of me, and I'm angling this forward and setting up a riposte with the point. So let's take a look at that adjustment. Because sometimes a riposte with the point is the fastest and most effective way to put an end to the fight. Again, practice with proper safety equipment. All right, from here, Payson's going to cut my head. Instead of returning with this straight blow, I'm going to pick this up here and I'm going to put a slight angle on this. So as he comes to my head with a committed attack here, I'm going to turn this and do a descending cut straight back down to the body, or here and come to the face. As you can see, that would be extremely effective. It is very fast. See if you can get back and parry it. Probably not, okay? Let's take a look at 6. Same thing happens in 6. From here, instead of doing a horizontal parry, again please, I'm going to do kind of a rising parry and deflect him, which gives me this almost immediate thrust, cut with the back edge, and I can immediately turn my hand back over again because I have penetrated his inside line here. I'm deflecting the energy now instead of absorbing it. Come back to this side again. Same thing here. I'm deflecting it slightly. It's a slight percussion. It's a slight angulation. And immediately, I'm putting the point on line and extending. Okay, very, very fast riposte. Let's take a look at the chest line. Here, now just like this would be my cut riposte. If I'm on this slight angle here like this, I've dropped, I've used a little bit of body to help absorb that, especially if it's a powerful blow. Here, I am right there. I'm inches away. The likelihood of his being able to get back and stop this is slim and none. All right? Very, very effective. I could also come, if he tries to get back here, I could come underneath the blade and come up that way. So if he's very reactive and I feel him moving, I just avoid that strength and then return to the same line. Let's look over here. From here at the top of the blade, again, just extend. It can go to the face, it can go to the throat, it can go downward descending on the body, or it could even go upward, okay? Little bit more risky because I'd want to have control of that blade, but it's possible. Let's take a look down here at the 2. Here. This is why I like this parry. This is why I like to be out here, because you notice my point is on center line. Immediate riposte. It's right there. I can go under the blade. I can go over the blade. Both work. Down here from a 1, this is my power. This is not the greatest application of the point. It's kind of awkward. If I was going to do that, I would prefer this. Okay? This parry is also nicely supplemented by moving the leg and then returning on line. Okay? Now, this brings up a concept. The Italians call this guardare, which means guarding with the blade. What I want to do when he comes to me in this line here, I don't want to return to center line and open this up for his counter extension. If he's going to come here, I want to stay here, so when I extend, I am trapping him on the guard. His blade is sliding down to the fort or strength of my blade where I have superior leverage, and I keep this inside line guarded. Same thing over here. Here, this here, when I come forward, I don't do this and vacate the line in an attempt to get to him, okay? Especially when I'm returning with the point. I'm here and I keep this, and he will get caught in my guard. If he comes down here, I could also use this second hand for additional power. That works nice. Or let's go to, the 2. Here like this, I am keeping this line. And you see by sliding up, you see how the weak part of his blade gets trapped in the strong part of mine. So I'm guarding myself with the blade, guarding myself with the guard. One last one that I really like quite a bit. If he cuts my head and I return to his head, when he parries, I just slide off his blade and stab him, okay? This is one where here, as he switches, I'm right there in center. Very, very hard to defend against. Be aware. Take your time. Try to be sensitive to the opportunities. Don't fight your partner. If he suddenly come to my fore, if I do this and I feel him fighting me, I'll just avoid it. Great thing about the point is you just slip off and return it. Okay? It's very subtle. Those of you who study martial arts are going to find it is very similar. Why fight strength? Let it go. Return to the line, because he's busy over-muscling. Try this, guarding with the blade, very specific applications, riposting with the point. Those indirect riposts work extremely well, especially if your partner is still in range. If he's come to you, if you've been out at your long range distance and he enters an attempt to hit, you have a successful defense and he's still there, bam, he's right there. But if he gets in and he's on his way back out again and he's very reactive, he's going to be hard to hit. So I'd like you to try riposting with an indirect riposte, meaning you're going to draw his reaction, and when he creates an opening, you're going to take advantage of it. So we're going to go back out to our long range where we're touching here like this. I'm going to open the line by way of invitation, and Payson is going to come. He can come with a cut or a thrust. Right now it's a cut. If he stayed there, I'd be able to hit him directly. But on his way back, he's going to recover back. So I'm going to give him that and then deceive his defense. All right? Let's take a look at that again. So from here, I'm going to offer this. He's going to make his cut. I'm going to feint. I'm going to deceive. And I'm going to hit. All right? Very subtle, very elusive, very small. Ideally, let's slow down a little bit. Come to me here again. Ideally, I want to present this point, and I only want to move as big as his hand. Do you see how small that is? I don't want to do this. This is where our proportion comes back in. I don't want to go like this. Okay? I'll never get in that way. What happens is, as he comes to me, I offer this. Oops, that was a little too small. Once more. I offer this, and I deceive him, and as soon as I pop over the head, I drive with that rear leg. That lunge brings the male home. All right? Let's take a look at another line. Let's look at the 4. I offer him the line. He comes into 4. There is my feinted direct riposte, and there is my deception of his defense. Okay? I could also do that here. Do it again. Here, feint. I could go to either the thumb turned down or to the palm down in this position. Both would be very effective. Once more. If it's a direct riposte, I would probably do that and leave my hand right there. But if I'm going to stretch him out here, I'm going to feint, deceive, and hit. Right? Whatever my target of opportunity is, there it happened to be the arm. He retracted his body. Arm was still there. I'll take that. As Liz said, thank you. Okay? Let's take a look at the low line. He cuts. If he stays, I'm going to do a direct riposte. But if he's in and out, I'm going to feint this and I'm going to deceive wherever he is. Now, his arm was in the way. I chose to go underneath. I could have taken the arm. Again. Here. Feint, and there, okay? Now, he did a parry, he went across, it wasn't effective, I just kept on going. Let's take a look at down here. Now, the 1 is not the best one to return with a point thrust from. From here, it's a little awkward, it's possible, but it's a little tough. If I'm here like this, I'm probably going to go ahead. I'll deceive and pick that up. But usually down there, I'll try for this, okay? Because this is better with the point. Here, either in supination, neutral, or pronation. One last one. Come to my head. Here, as he goes back, I will feint this. When he goes for it, I'll drop underneath and I'll extend. Okay? I'm just going to cling to him with my distance. A little faster. Hey, hey, wah! And there it is. All right? Thank you, Payson. So, indirect application. If you find that your opponent is picking you up, if he's a little too fast, you're going to have to create an opening. And this is one of the ways to do it. Your on-guard position represents a barrier that you've got to get past. Now, if your opponent presents you a blade, that's very good. That can give you something to work with. If he doesn't give it to you and removes it, that doesn't mean it's not there. That doesn't mean he's not ready to instantly return to center line and shift off and leave his blade there. So you've got to act like it is. There is a barrier that you've got to penetrate in order to be able to get to him. We're going to go from a guard position because if I come forward, this blade is going to come up. He will come up to oppose me. So I'm going to encounter it one way or another. We're going to start from a nucleus, kind of like a Wing Chun position where we're going to go with contact. We're going to go from our extended range. I'm going to step in to my engagement range. Now, this gives me a chance to control his blade. Okay? Now this barrier, I've either got to remove or I've got to get him to remove it by tricking him. Now we were just looking at one of the options for that. I can feint, and when he goes for it, I can deceive his defense. That's one of the ways to make him move it. Another way is through direct contact. This is another concept the Italians call it stringere, which is mean to actively seek to contact your opponent's blade. This gives me a reference point. From here, if he does nothing, if I'm nice and light and easy and stealthy, I can just go straight in with a glide of the blade. A glide is very little, almost no pressure at all. What I'm doing is I'm lulling him into a sense of, well, there's nothing going to happen here. And if I can extend this and get the foible or weak part of his blade in the middle and then the strong part of mine, I will leverage him out of the way. Simple physics, okay? If he gives me a little bit more energy, it might require a little more energy from me with a pressure slide, and maybe I will shift to another alignment. Maybe I'll turn my hand over. Not necessary, but it does give me increased leverage and a little bit more power with only the effort of turning my hand. My pressure slide has a little bit more energy. So again, I'm here, I see pressure, there's a little, okay, I'm going to come in. And you see how he got caught in my guard because my hand stayed in center line. And finally, the pressure slide is the most energy of all. If I'm coming forward here and he does nothing, I will just come to that line. All right? If I find there's a great deal of energy, I will go here when he fights me. Go ahead. And when he fights me, I'll just come off it. I'd love him to fight me because he's going to waste energy. Anytime I feel him pushing against me, I'm going to release that and go. But right now we're looking at moving the blade through a glide, through a slide, and through a pressure slide. Okay? Those three elements combined with some entry technique, be it a step, a pass forward, a lunge, or for that matter, even a passata. That would work very nicely. Okay? Thank you, Payson. So we've worked with getting past the opponent's barrier, this guard position or his blade, whether it's physically there or not. We've started with this engagement, and I've shown you how to make a larger opening so that you can get back to the body and the head. Now let's go back to the obvious. Your closest target is his hand. So I want to do the same look at those slides, you know, with a little bit of energy and a little bit increasing energy, so you're getting into the pressure slides. And just open up the target, and I only need to open it up a little bit for me to be able to make an effective counter against his hand. Let's take a look at that. Payson, thank you. So if I'm engaged on the outside, and I've managed to lull him to sleep, nothing's going to happen here. If I can just open this up a little bit, especially with the curve of the blade, I can pick off the wrist, or I can pick off the forearm with a point, or something that's extremely effective is to get to the bicep. You cannot extend your arm when I've got my sword in your bicep. I can also take that on up to the shoulder, and you can see it just rocks him back. So I don't have to get all the way to the head and the body. Same thing on the inside. If I'm engaged over here and I can just open this up a little bit, I can come right over the top and just pick that wrist, forearm, bicep. Very effective. If I catch a piece of this and he continues to extend, this is going to go through his skin and right up his arm. Okay, he's not going anywhere after that. He's going to drop the sword into fight. Okay? Very, very effective. So we're utilizing this gentle slide here, our first glide, and it can be not just a point, it can also be a cut. I can come over the top here like this. I can insert this here, and I'm still guarding with my sword. If I come to the inside line here, if I move him over, here's my glide, just enough to get in there. Here's my slide, a little bit more. Here's my pressure slide where I really open it up, and I bring just a little bit more power to it. So open the closest target, which is his hand. Let's look at another way to physically remove that barrier. We're going to utilize a technique called a beat. It's a sudden explosion of power against his blade. It's small, it's focused, but I'm going to move it and open the door just enough to be able to flow through and bring the edge or the point of the blade to bear. So, especially if he's not going to give me this blade, but he avoids it and he keeps it in center, okay? So if you avoid my blade and you won't let me engage, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sneakily move, okay? I'm going to try and catch him by surprise. And what I want to do is I would like to bring the center of my blade anywhere from about 1/3 of the way up to in here to the midpoint on his foible. I am looking to control this part of his blade because this I can move. If I beat down here, I've essentially cut into a parry. He has more power than I do. So I'm looking to control the blade up here. And what I want to do is I want to move it just enough to be able to get in there and get back out again. So I can do it with a cut here. Again, the target of the hand is the closest to here. Or I can move and come straight up to the face or the body, either on the outside or on the inside, and all those various lines. Once I open the door, you want to get in, apply the blade, get out again. I could also do that with a thrust. So we're here, that's there. I would like to do it by surprise. And again, pick the hand, pick the forearm, pick the bicep. Very, very useful. A second way is with a change beat. Actually, let me show you this. This has been the beat from the outside line. I can do the same thing. If we're here like this, I can move from the inside line. And again, hand with a cut, forearm. Here, these snap cuts are going to work very effectively here, right up to the face or the throat. Could be a straight vertical. I'm going to utilize the lunge to get in and get back out again. If I'm on the outside line and he's kind of getting a little wary of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the same technique but from a surprising angle. So I'm going to do what's called a change beat. I'm either going to drop underneath and again beat this part of the blade before coming forward. So I'm changing from the outside line to the inside line. And I would like to literally ricochet off of that. So I'm ricocheting off. Okay, right now I'm going into his guard so that I'm not giving him a beating, but I want to come up here and hit. Wrist, forearm, elbow, bicep, work your way on up. This can result in what they call defanging the snake, which is I can take this weapon. Okay, you've heard that expression a lot, particularly if you've worked in the Filipino martial arts. Basically what you're trying to do is disarm your opponent, take away the striking power of this hand. If I can get him to drop that sword, so much the better. So here's a change beat from the outside line to the inside line. Same thing can happen from here. I can be threatening him here, and I'm going to shift down below, small beat up here in the weak part of his blade, just enough to open the door and pick that hand. Again, with cuts or with thrusts, or even with thrusts like this, and up the center. You're aware of all the target lines, the target angles. Open that door, they're now available to you. The beat and the change beat or change of engagement beat. Final way to do this, we have been going underneath, like our disengaged position. I can also begin from an engagement and change beat. I can begin from an engagement and then do a surprising beat. Same thing on the inside line. I can begin from an engagement and suddenly beat, or I can begin from this engagement and suddenly change beat by dropping underneath. You can also beat by cutting over. Okay? It's called a coupe, simply cutting over the top. So instead of coming underneath, I am coming over the top, beating the blade, again open. If I could have his thumb, I would be very, very happy, because you cannot hold the sword if I've chopped your thumb. Okay? So I'm here like this. I'm going to beat and just come straight down. I'm going to beat to open this up. There I am right there. I'm going to change beat over the top, cut over, and hit that hand. You see how it opens it right up? I can come over the top, change beat, and come up here and take the face. All right? So we have the concept of the engagement, the pressure, the beat and the change of line or change of engagement beat, which is either by cutting over the top or dropping underneath, disengaging underneath to apply that pressure. Make that sudden explosion, and then into that opening you flow. This comes under the heading of paying attention to how your opponent is responding. If you find yourself facing a very skilled opponent, someone who parry riposte counterattacks very quickly, very efficiently, you may not have the opportunity to go back and retreat from your distance. Let me illustrate. I'm going to now, remember, I am not wearing proper safety equipment for the purposes of clarity during this DVD. Never, ever, ever practice like this. Make sure you give yourself the correct protection. I'm going to attack Payson's head, okay? And he's going to attempt to riposte. Now, if I take the time to go backwards, there's a good chance, and he lunges into me, that he is going to force my blade out of the way. Because right here, he has superior leverage. And if I retract in an attempt to parry riposte, there's a chance he's going to hit me. So once I have grabbed this real estate, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to stay here, and then I'm going to wait for him to commit. If he goes here, I'm going to go here. Let's go back again. If he goes anywhere else, and I don't care where, I'm going to be there. I'm cutting down his angles of attack because instead of retracting, I am staying forward and waiting for him to commit. You notice how I've gone inside his blade? Let's go from here. We'll just stay here. I'm going to now go outside his blade. I don't care. By remaining forward and reaching to intercept, I can use my absorbing, I can use my percussion parry, I can use my deflection parry. I could do this. If he commits to this, okay, look where that point is. The point is I need to stay forward, I need to cut down his angles, I need to cut down his options. So I commit, I'm going to stay, and I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait for as long as possible till I know that's his real attack, and then I'm going to take advantage of it and get out again. All right? Second intention, attack. Again, while you're assessing what your opponent likes to do, keep your eyes open. Look to see, is there something that he likes to do repeatedly, that he starts getting into an automatic rhythm, something predictable. If he likes to take my blade, I'm going to let him do it. Now, this calls for superior execution of your basics. You've got to have practiced these because the timing is oh so important. Remember, you're controlling distance, you're controlling proportion or the size of your movement, and you're controlling the timing of the action in order to dominate the encounter. If Payson likes to take my blade, if he likes to move it around, if he likes to envelop it, I'm going to let him have it. I'm going to let him have it until he makes a move, and he will actually, I'm going to delay, in other words, I'm going to delay my release. He thinks he's got me. While he's preparing to attack, I'm in line. Just like Lynn said, that point comes back to the target of opportunity. Let's try it on the inside line. If he takes it here, I'm going to let him have it. Notice how I come free, and I'll go straight up to his face or whatever else affords itself. Again, let's do the inside line. Inside line. Here, see, I can also come straight up here and pick up that hand. The key to this is he thinks he has me. Do an envelopment. On this envelopment, see, he thinks he's going to take me and dominate this and come in. I'm going to let him do his favorite technique, and I'm not going to release until there. Just when he thinks he has me and is about to commit to his attack, I'm gone. It's very elusive. It's very subtle. It calls for excellent timing. You've got to be able to put all of the pieces together on this. But this is how you defeat somebody who's very, very good. You have to take the risk. You have to see, what is it that he likes to do? I'm going to allow him to do it. I'm going to let him think he has me, and then I'm going to outwit him. Give that a try. I'd like to show you a couple of disarms, but first with a very strong admonition. A warning, if you will. Don't think you're going to rush in and just take this blade away. If you find yourself in a position to where you can apply as a follow-up technique a disarm, you've got to set up a disarm. And it's going to be almost more accidental. but I want to give you some information so that you can start to practice and work on this, so that if you find yourself in range, because this is a checking hand close range technique, and it's a follow-up, you've already created a window, you've already startled them, you've already distracted them, you've already got in 1 or 2 hits, then you might be able to take his sword away from him. Of course, disarming the sword is going to end, hopefully, in the fight, and that would be the goal. But don't be in a big hurry to rush in and try to take somebody's sword away from him, because I'd love for you to grab my sword. You know, you have to be very careful. The nice thing about a saber or a cutlass is it's dull on the backside, and if you can manipulate the flat, if you can manipulate the guard, it gives you a chance. But again, this is a secondary follow-up technique. It should not be your primary concern. Let's look at a couple of things. All right, from the inside line, if I find myself in this position, okay, if I got a little crowded or he's come in a little bit far, I can take and pass and step out. So with a little bit of energy, it's this. Now you'll notice I am maintaining contact with. This is a combination of the absorbing parry and the redirection clinging parry, and all I need to do is move from inside center line to outside center line. That's enough. Now I'm going to go straight to his leg, come to the inside of the thigh, come up to the groin, come to the belly, come down here like this. Once more. I can also even shift to here, but I far prefer hanging on to this because I'm guarding myself with my sword. With that idea in mind, if I find myself, go ahead, here, okay, I am now in checking hand range. Now here you want to be careful. Don't be reaching here and grabbing. Now, as it happens, most sabers, this particular Napoleonic saber isn't sharpened here. This is the fort, but I wouldn't count on it, okay? Not all the swords are of the quality of cold steel. What I want to do is get up here, get my hand somewhere around this combination of the hand and the guard. Some people like to just go to the hand. This is nice, but twist it away. But he can twist this away. But if I get my hand here, I now have my fingers on the back of the blade. If he tries to move or twist, he can't. And while he takes that time to struggle, I'm going to be somewhere else. Okay? So I want to get this in, and I'm reaching. Right here like this. I'm going to pass through center. Now my disarm comes here. I have control of the blade, so I can take and put the flat of the blade against my arm, and all I have to do is turn. Let's take a look at that from another angle. So again, it's here. Here's my absorbing parry, my clinging redirecting parry, my stepping offline. I'm monitoring this the whole time. This works particularly well against somebody who likes to come in with a lot of power. So if he commits, great, I love that. Okay, I can take that energy. He's still falling forward. I'm already gone. Again, you only have to move from the inside line. Once you have passed center, once you've reached center, you step over. Let him keep going that way. He'll fall right into your sword. If you find yourself in here where you can reach with this hand, so I've turned in here, I am inserting, you see how I have my hand over top of his hand, and I've got a couple of fingers back here on the back dull edge of the blade. I'm controlling his blade so that I can get to the flat. Once more. From here, shift. I've got the flat of his blade. I'm going to put this into my forearm. I'm going to twist my body. I'm either going to break his fingers or just cut him. I'll take either one of those. Okay, with a little bit of energy. From here, see if I can shift that. Now I've got that. And I'll take that too. All right, make sense? Good. Let's try one coming from a different angle. So this is the inside line. Let's go with the outside line. And you're going to do this rising. It's essentially a hanging six, but you're turning your hand up and you're redirecting here. And if I can get here like this, get my hand in here, get my hand over his hand and on his guard, I'm going to shift here, back into his face. If that doesn't work, I'm going to lift this up here like this, and then I'm going to twist. Okay, let's look at it again. So, catch, insert. First start here, and while he's thinking about that, redirect that, and then pivot there. I'll take that just fine. Let's look at it from a different angle. So we work the inside line, this is the outside line. I find myself over here. If I get that, I'll be fine. I would rather be out here. But if he has charged me and I found myself in here, or it's a follow-up technique, I get that hand in there, I want to find his thumb pad. I also want to get my hand on his guard, because this is something I can grab with relative impunity, okay? Don't be up here. Once more. Here. And I am guarding this, I am monitoring this. This is coming here. I will very happily take this and this and this and this, which is going to set up this. Okay, one more time. So, catch in place, twist, apply your body, that's going to help a lot. If he's struggling this way, change the angle, twist and cut out. So there's a couple. Remember, don't seek this. If you find yourself inside, if you're able to employ this second hand and your footwork, redirect that energy, take his sword if it's available.
Hi, my name is Len Thompson. I'm the president of Cold Steel Incorporated and the chief instructor of our knife fighting training program. Over the last 10 years, I've spent an enormous amount of time sparring with my training partners in order to develop a method of fighting where we can cut and stab our opponent without being injured in the process. In the following instruction, I'm going to cover our basic long-range knife fighting program, but before we get started, I want to cover the following. The first is the 3 ranges a knife fight can occur in. Second are the types of knives you may find in the hands of an opponent and their advantages and disadvantages. Third is why your fighting knife must be both strong and sharp. Fourth is what your actual goal should be in a knife fight. And following this, we will go into a discussion of how to grip the fighting knife. There's a number of different grips that you can use. In this volume, we're going to concentrate on footwork. The first thing I'm going to teach you is our basic on-guard fighting stance. Then I'm going to cover the mistakes a lot of people make when they try to assume this stance. And then we're going to go into actual footwork drills and techniques that'll help develop you into a superior knife fighter. Remember, there are no great knife fighters that don't have great footwork. In this third volume, I want to teach you how to use the point and edge of your fighting knife so that you can take maximum advantage of it when you're actually in the street and having to use your blade. The first thing I'm going to start with is the point itself, and I'm going to teach you how to rake with it, then how to use the speed jab, the straight thrust, the power thrust, and the épée thrust. And then I'm going to conclude this section with how to use your point in elliptical, looping, or circular stabbing motions. Then I'm going to go on to teaching you how to use the edge. The first thing we're going to start with is the slash, then the cut, then the chop, then the hack, then the snap cut, then the vertical whip, and finally conclude this with sawing, which is seldom taught. Then I'm going to go into the 12 angles of attack, how you can recognize these angles and how to use them both offensively and defensively. In this fourth volume, I want to concentrate on defense. The first thing we're going to teach is defensive footwork. Then we're going to teach how to use your knife to counter slash and stop your opponent's blows. Then I'm going to teach you how to avoid cuts and slashes at your knife hand. And then I'm going to go into using your empty hand or a live hand defensively. And finally, I'm going to finish with the study of Mai, which is the study of judging distance. In Volume 5, we're going to concentrate on offense. The first thing I'm going to teach you is how to recognize the many openings your opponent's going to give you in his stance and his fighting method. Then we're going to move into how to create openings yourself, what you can do to make an opening or an opportunity in your opponent's defense so that you can land a telling attack. And finally, we're going to go into strategy, some of our basic fighting strategies that we want you to employ as a long-range knife fighter. In Volume 6, our final volume, the first thing we're going to do is go through quite a number of different training drills that will build the attributes you need to start sparring with a partner. Then I'm going to go into actual sparring drills that you can practice with your training partner to improve your overall knife fighting ability. So let's start training.